From Paso Tiempo to Pebble Beach, Red Hot News Talk, AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're listening to AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. It is 4:13. You've got to tune into the right spot because we haven't. One of the most interesting guests that I can think of is coming up next. Keep it tuned in. You're going to want to listen to this. I want to thank yesterday's guest for joining us. That is always good. Fernando Gallegos is our guest today. Fernando is an author. He is also an archaeologist. Can I say that? Explorer.
Yeah.
Oh yes, dude. Oh man, I would trade my title of radio host for explorer any day. Here, let's trade seats. You can be host and I'll go explorer. So tell me, what does explorer mean?
I don't know. Somebody who just wants to follow like their passion. Somebody who has a passion for knowledge, who wants to see if there's anything behind any type of esoteric mythology or story. For me, growing up, it was a matter of reading like different subjects on lost cities and lost civilization. That intrigued me, and and I wanted to go out and see if it was actually true.
How old are you?
I'm 33.
33. Yeah. Did you ever see the show In Search Of?
Oh yeah, that was.
Oh man, that's the kind of show. I mean, you're living that kind of life, right? So you watch these kind of. Did you watch them on TV?
Oh yeah. I would wake up every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. when they would show In Search of reruns. I still remember that very vividly.
Man.
Yeah.
And so this has been a fascination of yours. Okay, so let me tell people first of all, just in case you're tuning in, Fernando Salvador Gallegos, Fernando S. Gallegos, is a author. He's written a book called The Ancients: Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. Did I say that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Lemuria, is that in Mount Shasta? On Mount Shasta? Under Mount Shasta?
Lemuria was supposedly a continent that was once attached to California and extended across the Pacific Ocean. So all that territory.
We're going to talk about that today.
Yeah,
sure. We're going to talk about a lost city of Mount Shasta. Was there?
Oh, we could talk about that. Yeah.
And then the lost city of Paititi.
Paititi, yes.
Paititi.
Correct.
We got all kinds of stuff. So the book again is called "The Ancients: Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis." I have a link on our Facebook page, so if you want to check it out, you can do that. They can buy the book
on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And you also have a blog.
Yes, that's
right.
Correct.
Does that cost anything to follow that?
No. It's absolutely free.
And what's the name of that?
Exploringtraditions.com.
Exploringtraditions.com. Now, you sent me a couple of links, and the links that you sent me, man, I can't believe the stuff that we're going to talk about. This is so cool. So Fernando's going to be joining us. You're going to join us till 7?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, all right. So if you have any phone calls, you can go ahead and warm up your finger now, but just hang in there because we're going to talk a little bit of about what Fernando has found during his exploration. So you're an explorer?
Yes.
Okay. And that means that you basically just... do you do this for money? Do you go and explore? What are you looking for when you go to explore?
I try to look for anything tangible that would tie archaeological remains to actual legends and mythology of the indigenous cultures. It's a lot of it has been dismissed in a lot of academic circles, so I try to find actual tangible proof of these myths that have been discarded.
Now, when you do this, do you try to disprove the myth? Do you try to prove that it's true, that it really is a myth? Do you do it as a, hey, screw you to the scientists? I mean, what causes you to, is it a rebellion against common knowledge? Do you just kind of push against that? Are you one of those guys that resists?
Yeah, I mean, as an undergraduate, I studied anthropology. That was my background. And I came to realize that a lot of this anomalous information, a lot of this research and evidence that would come up occasionally as with archaeologists and stuff like that, it would just get dismissed, and I kind of found that insulting. I mean, a lot of the native populations say something. This is their truth, and yet many academics completely disregard these mythologies, and they consider it just, oh, this is just superstitions, it's just stories. And I wanted to find something further. I wanted to find some tangible evidence to support these indigenous cultures.
How easy is that to do?
Extremely difficult.
It's hard, huh?
Science moves at a very slow pace.
It does, right? And you know what's interesting is that science is so resistant to change, right?
Yes.
I mean, they say, well, that's impossible. That can't be. Well, that's that's not the way science is done.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, that's not the way science is done. You have to be open to all possibilities, even no matter how remote they are. Maybe you want to entertain the possibility or not, but there is a possibility.
Exactly.
Always.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're talking the end of science, and that's dangerous.
Exactly.
Okay, 479-1080 is the number if you want to get on board. We are talking with Fernando Gallegos. Now, his book, again, is called The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. So you start watching these things when you're a kid, right? And this gets your imagination going. What are some of the first things that you remember thinking about? Was it the lost cities? Was it aliens? Was it
It was a little bit of
lost temples?
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything. I mean, Indiana Jones, like that sparked my imagination. Unsolved Mysteries was another show that I was just hooked on. I mean, I would always find myself in the libraries, just in like that little dark corner, just pulling up all these books, and it just captured my imagination. And it wasn't until I went to college that I really started exploring these as a tangible means of trying to figure out and solve mysteries for myself.
Now, what happened in college that made you want to do this? Was it just that you were old enough now to do something about it? Did you meet somebody who piqued your curiosity more? What happened?
Actually, let me back up. So around 2004, I was in college, and I came across this book. It was called Lemuria, the Lost Continent of the Pacific. And that captured my imagination. It mentioned this lost civilization that once existed in the Pacific Ocean, and how the survivors of this lost continent came to California and live now in present-day California, hidden in caves and other places. So that piqued my interest. I mean,
I almost want to stop you there and talk about that. That's the first thing we're going to talk about when you're done. Okay.
So I mean, it was far-fetched, but it captured my imagination. I was like, I wanted to explore further. So, I mean, most people would just be, it's some crazy New Age type of book. But I started reading up on the actual indigenous myths of that area, of like the specific areas that it mentions, like around Mount Shasta specifically. And they have these legends of these people that existed prior to them arriving, and it goes into a lot more in depth at that point. But that really captured my attention. And then that's when I began to realize, okay, so the indigenous talk about this. We have this anomalous archaeological remains that could tie into exactly to what this book was talking about. So that got me going.
Okay, so let's start off there. Let's start off with Lemuria. So that's where you start off, getting into more exploring and asking questions, questioning things, right?
Correct.
Looking for artifacts that would suggest this really happened. That what really happened? What was Lemuria?
So within a lot of the New Age theosophical circles, you have this legend of Lemuria, a lost continent that once existed in the Pacific Ocean. This particular book that I came across was written by the Rosicrucian Order. It was published by them. And they took it further. They said the survivors of this lost civilization ended up in California, and then they still exist here to this day. It's pretty far-fetched, but...
Well, I mean, that's what we're here to discuss. Here on this show, you should hear some of the stuff that we talk about. That I don't care how far-fetched it is. I want to hear it because this to me is fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating. So yeah, I want to hear it. So Lemuria was where did this place connect with California? Did it connect? Did it touch?
It supposedly connected California as far as Australia, even. So
wow.
it is pretty vast. That's what they're.
Was it like a bridge of
it was
land?
just like one massive continent. There's no evidence to support this landmass at all, but the myths are there. You have different myths within Polynesia about these advanced cultures and stuff like that. So it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting.
So you were saying that they had migrated to California and lived in caves. This is what the legend is, right?
Yes.
This we're talking legends, and your pursuit of evidence again for or against these legends. That's what you do. That's what you do as an explorer, right?
Correct.
Now, are you getting paid to do this?
No, definitely not. My background, I actually work professionally in a Silicon Valley company. I do production, broadcasts, and stuff like that.
So you're out there. You're looking for evidence one way or the other about these legends. Not necessarily myths, right? Because myth means that it's not true, but kind of this like Santa Claus, right? Everybody believes, but it's not true. So you're looking for evidence of these legends.
Correct.
You say that they migrated. The legend is that they migrated to California and lived in caves. Is there any evidence that? Are there any caves that appear to have been lived in California? Is there any system?
There's if you ever go up to Mount Shasta, there's a massive tunnel complex because of the volcanic tunnels that were created geologically, and people have claimed to have stumbled into these caves and come across amazing sights. So, like in 1904, there was the story of J.C. Brown, who supposedly came into one of these caves. And after several miles of going down into this cavern, he came across these giant skeletons and all these other remains and gold artifacts and things of that sort. He tried to later go back in the 30s with an expedition team, but he vanished right before he was supposed to set back in.
He vanished?
Correct. And this was I think in Merced or Modesto, somewhere around there. He just completely vanished. The whole team was waiting for him. He had.
What do you think happened? Do you think he just said, "I'm not going to take all these. I don't want to cut these guys in." Somebody kidnapped him.
That's what one of the theories was.
Because the knowledge, I mean, that's worth a lot.
So the main speculation regarding it was that he ran off with everybody's money. Like, oh, here, invest in me. We'll go explore together. But the truth is, he didn't gain anything from it. He didn't, not even a cent from anybody.
Wow.
He just disappeared. So that's quite interesting. There's several other rumors of other caves, like in Death Valley, where people claim to stumbled into these vast chambers where they find this advanced technology and stuff like that. So I mean,
okay, we'll talk about that. Let's finish. Let's finish talking about Lemuria and
Sure.
Mount Shasta, because we'll concentrate on one region at a time.
Sure.
And this is I think the best way to have more fun with this topic. So up in Mount Shasta, did Lemuria kind of lead to a search up there, or the legend of Lemuria? Have you been to Mount Shasta looking for these caves?
Yes,
you have. Okay, good. Good. So what did you find? Did you find any caves at all?
Yeah, there's caves. There's
really?
there's plenty of caves you could go visit.
And do they let you walk in?
Yeah, they let you walk in. Supposedly these caverns are pretty vast, so you have to be really careful where you go, because you could
dangerous.
Yeah, they're dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, and that does make sense that you would find ancient civilizations there. I mean, because that's like a house already built for you, right?
Yeah.
You just go in there, and I'm sure the temperature stays kind of moderate, one way or the other. So there are caves there. Did you go into any of them?
Yeah. I went into a few of them. There's just nice little caverns to go visit. I wanted to go in further, but you just can't. It's too dangerous. There's some people that are pretty crazy. They go in all the way, but no.
Did you talk to anybody out there who has heard of or who had found anything themselves
I've
of
heard
interest?
several stories while I was up there.
What did you hear?
But, that they've come across like different chambers and doors and stuff like that, and I'm really skeptical about it. There's a lot of like new age type of people up there that claim all this.
Here locally, where are you from?
San Jose.
So you're from San Jose. Okay, so here locally, I have a few legends here locally too that I can discuss with you. So we're gonna have some fun. One of them that I wasn't planning on talking about was brought up today. I had heard it only once, and I thought the guy was crazy. And somebody, I went walking with Mark Hastings. He's an author of a book here that I had earlier. He was telling me about the lost train in Nizheen Marks, right? Nizheen Marks is a pretty big state park up here in Santa Cruz County. It's a huge park. I mean, park is not the word for it. It's huge. And supposedly there is a train up there in the mountains, and I don't know what the heck it's doing up there, but he mentioned it today, and I stopped him and said, "What are you talking about?" And he said that yes, there was a train up there, but it did get lost and got disassembled, and I don't know what happened to it, but there is a train up there in the mountains, which is just weird.
Nice.
Yeah, and so you hear things from people.
That's correct.
And you think, oh, this guy might be nuts, but maybe he's not.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, maybe he's not. I've only heard it twice ever, and I've talked to lots of people about hiking through these mountains and stuff. I've only heard it twice.
There's always a grain of truth somewhere out there. Behind every story, there's always a small grain of truth.
So what are some of the other legends of Mount Shasta?
So
did you find anything?
No, nothing crazy. It's just a matter of exploring.
No drawings on the caves,
No.
nothing like that. Was there any evidence that something had existed there?
No, I mean, nothing of that sort. Just the stories. What really fascinated me was studying what the anthropologists wrote on the actual myths of the indigenous people in that area. The anthropologists that were moving into California would document all these stories, these ethnographical stories of these people, and they would just get put away.
What does ethnographical mean?
Stories of the people.
So it's like National Geographic type
so if I'm
films?
If I'm an anthropologist, I go in and I record directly what you're saying, what your perspective is, your mythology. So they had all these stories recorded, but they were just basically put away. They were just recorded and stored away because at that time, after the gold rush, a lot of these tribes basically diminished. And so these anthropologists were moving in quickly trying to record all these stories. And one of the stories that really captured my imagination was that of the Woge or Wogas people. And they're described as white-skinned and very tall and very elegant, very elegant people. And they were seen almost as these mystical, god-like people.
When you say very tall, are you talking giant?
No,
Tall?
just a little bit tall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was very vague in terms of the height, but the bottom line was that they were white-skinned. And according to their myths, when the indigenous people came down from Beringia, downward, they would come across these people, and they lived in harmony with one another. And then at some point in time, before a great flood, quote unquote, they got together and they took off, never to be seen or heard from again. They took off to the far, according to them, they took off to the far north and to the west. And so that really captured my imagination, because I was like, wow, there's actual stories mentioning these tall Caucasian-looking people, similar to what the Rosicrucians wrote about. So that really got me going, and to think about the anomalous evidence that we've found. Like some of the oldest skeletal remains in the Americas are found in California. Santa Rosa Island, and Kennewick Man, both have these features that are not typical of Native Americans. I mean, they are. The DNA is actually found within the Native American population, but in very small amounts. So what we have are the haplogroups. We have A, B, C, and D, which is found within the microcolonial DNA. And there's this rare X that is also found in small European populations. And how it ended up here is up to debate. So scientists have been like, why, how did this end up here? And so they were starting to study the traces of X throughout the Americas. And so what they concluded was, so we could trace back haplogroup A, B, and C, A, B, C, and D, which are the four main Native American haplogroups. Those are clearly dispersed and evolve over time. They mutate. So we could find those little genetic markers of where they change over time. So we could see the distribution across the Americas. However, when they came across X, they came to the conclusion that X was already stagnant. It was already there in pockets. So there's no evidence of that change over time because they were there intact. So when the Native Americans came down and mixed, they maintained that X haplogroup, which then got integrated into the Native American DNA, which is amazing to me.
4791080. Okay, we're going to talk about that. That is now we're getting somewhere. And again, questioning conventional wisdom is fun. It is fun.
Yes.
You're an explorer. Fernando Gallegos is an explorer. He's hanging out here with us. We're going to talk with him more. Let's get to a phone call. Larry is calling. I don't know where you're calling from, Larry, but thank you. You're in the air.
Yeah, I'm from Silva Beach. So when I first moved here back in the 70s, I lived by Nicene Marks, and one of my roommates, he was a geologist at UCSC, and we talked about what he told me what was discovered there. And it was a train engine that was one of the trains that pulled the logs out of Nicene Marks when they were logging it, and it went over a trestle, and it landed in the creek, got buried in it, and after a while it washed out again. They found it, and I guess either got buried again or they took it away, but that's what its history was. And they also found a mastodon skull that was buried in the creek, and that was displayed in the Santa Cruz Museum for years.
That is awesome, man. Thank you for your call, Larry. 479-1080-218-5726, DM@ksco.com. So there's a little more. I guess the legend of the train in the Santa Cruz Mountains is true. It fell off a cliff, got washed into the river, and that does happen a lot, right? Sometimes things get washed into a river, they get covered up, and then they find them, and they're covered up again, and this stuff happens, right? And so we're going to talk about your search for lost cities, too?
Yes.
All right, dude. All right. 479-1080, DM@ksco.com. Fernando Gallegos is joining us. Sorry about that. If you want to check out his book, again, you can go to Amazon, or you can check it out on our Facebook page. The book is called The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. Check it out. We're going to break for local news, traffic, weather. Keep it tuned in. We'll be right back. KSCO News Time is 4:35. Headlines are coming up next. Phil Deseth is ready to go. Take it away, Phil.
Thanks, Dave, and good afternoon, Central Coast. Several streets will be closed while the Strawberry Festival takes place in Watsonville this weekend. 9 pallets of local strawberries have been delivered, which is about 10,000 boxes of the berries. The event celebrates not just the local crop, but the city's 150th anniversary. Money raised by the event goes to help support 13 local charities. And the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District is offering training to identify the signs of mental health crisis in youth. The Youth Mental Health First Aid training will teach people to spot behavioral changes, know what questions to ask, and how to get professional help for students. The training is offered to people outside the district. The first public training session is set for October 16th and 18th. For information, call 831-645-1200. That's 831-645-1200. And registration is now open for the 5th Annual Classic Car Show at the Santa Cruz Harbor. The show is set for October 14th and runs from 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. And it will feature classic cars, of course, and music and food. Registration fee is $40, and you can call the harbor to do that, and then to get tickets, you can go to eventbrite.com. It's 4:36. Time to get back to Flight 1080. I'm Phil Deseth for KSCO Radio.
Hi, registered pharmacist Ben Fuchs here. I've been studying healthy bodies for 35 years, and what I've got to tell you may shock and surprise you, but if you listen up, it may change your life. While many topically applied vitamins have skin health benefits, none can come close to the wide-ranging anti-aging effects provided by the retinoids, commonly called vitamin A, that is available in 3 major forms. The most common and the most stable form is known as retinol palmitate, and while it's readily available in creams and lotions, it doesn't do very much for your skin. The second form of vitamin A is retinol. It's more active, and in fact, if you use a high enough concentration, say 5 to 10%, you can get a nice exfoliating vitamin A skin peel. However, retinol is quite unstable, and for this reason, you're only going to find these kinds of concentrations in a medical or skin professional setting. The third type is the most important. Chemists call it retinoic acid. It's known as active vitamin A because in the skin, it's the form that's doing the work. The benefits of topically applied retinoic acid include thicker, stronger skin, diminished dark spots, and improvement in photo damage, less wrinkles, and healing and prevention of acne blemishes. Retinoic acid-containing products do require a doctor's prescription, and they've been known to cause reactions. If you've tried to use retinoic acid and ended up with a rash, try using or upping your daily dose of essential fatty acids. Low levels of omega-3 and 6 essential fats can make skin sensitive, and in deficiency states, irritations are much more likely to occur. Pharmacist Ben here, urging you to go to KSCOhealth.com to order Beyond Tangy Tangerine, the Healthy Start Pack, and other nutritional supplements that I personally use and recommend. You can purchase these premium quality products at wholesale prices online at KSCOhealth.com. That's KSCOhealth.com. I'm the pharmacist that believes that staying healthy and strong is not only about medicine, it's about giving your body the raw materials it needs to do its work. Go to KSCOhealth.com. Make sure you check out the cool videos, too, at KSCOhealth.com. That's KSCOhealth.com.
You're listening to KSCO, serving Monterey, Brookdale, and San Lucas.
Or 479-1080. You're listening to Flight 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. There is traffic everywhere out there. If you're stuck in traffic, there it is. There it is. Good news here is that there's no major incidents, so just give it some time. Speeds will pick up. Keep it tuned in to KSCO Santa Cruz because we have some interesting topics for you. Again, Fernando Gallegos is joining us. I want you to check out two things. I want you to check out his book. Go to our Facebook page. You'll find links to both. His book is called The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. And his blog is called exploringtraditions.com. And this is, I like to, well, actually, I don't like to read too much because I like to watch movies better.
Who doesn't?
But your blog is great. So you can only watch a movie once and you've seen it. Right? You can read a book once and you've read it. But this blog is like fresh material. I mean, it's idea after idea, and it's just great, man. So you read this thing, and for a day, 2 days, your imagination just runs wild. This is great stuff. It's called exploringtraditions.com, right? Mm-hmm. So they can go there and read this stuff for free. Can they find a link to your book there, too?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Exploringtraditions.com. The book is called The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. Okay, so let's keep talking about Lemuria. So you think, given the description, that maybe it is more likely that it was what you called Beringia, right?
Yes.
And this is what connects Russia with the United States by Alaska.
Correct. The Bering Strait. And
the Bering Strait.
Within that area, it used to be a large landmass, and it was actually quite warmer at the time. It was like a lush paradise. And when you follow like the descriptions of like the Aztec Aztlan, they always said it was to the north and to the west. Same thing with many of the indigenous tribes within California. They say that their origin was into the far north and west, like Chichikoth and things of that sort. So it matches up the description with the description of where these native populations actually originated.
Okay, so we know that land mass up there it's pretty cold up there.
Yes.
And you're saying that it was lush at the time that these legends were supposedly happening.
Correct.
It was lush, so it wasn't frozen at that time.
No. Yeah, there's a lot of evidence to actually support that it was a lush paradise at one point in time.
Was the whole region or like that, or was it just that one spot that was unfrozen, almost like God had put it there? Do you find any evidence of God, by the way? You mentioned the Great Flood. We're talking about Mount Shasta, and you said that a Great Flood had occurred, and these people, these light-skinned, these tall, light-skinned natives. Got in boats and they took off to where?
Back to their homeland. So the native cultures say that they all got together, all these populations, these tall, white-skinned people, got together and left to the far north and to the west. However, there's a continuation of the same legends that state that perhaps they disappeared into the rocks, into the mountains, into the streams. And they're always going to be there until one point in time when they're going to return and bring back peace to the entire world. So when the Caucasians started, the actual the gold miners started coming into California, they thought it was them returning, and so they opened their arms to them, and they took advantage, and the rest is history. And so that's a great misfortune, and they many of the tribes were long awaiting their eternal return, because it was supposed to bring they're seen as mystical people,
right? Yeah, I could see that.
Almost godlike. So they were thinking, oh, it's going to be peace once again. Peace is going to reign once again, and
and didn't turn out that way.
Exactly.
And then correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't study any of this stuff. I've read books and watched TV shows. But didn't that happen quite frequently? I mean, hasn't that story played out several times where they see light-skinned people getting off a boat and they say, "Holy cow, these are different from us," and almost treated them like as if though they were gods or something like that, right?
Yeah. And that's a very common theme. So so perhaps
what is it about? Why do they associate that with some kind of supreme being or some kind of god?
So if you take, for instance, like the legend of Quetzalcoatl with the Aztecs, or Culiacan. I can't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head. But with Quetzalcoatl, he was seen as very godlike and tall, bearded, and white skin. And when he departed, he vowed to one day return, and again, peace would reign supreme. And again, in South America, you have the legend of Viracocha, who was seen as same description, tall, bearded, and light-skinned, and he would travel with the book, and he was the one that brought wisdom and knowledge to these people, and that's how they were able to build such magnificent cities, like these stone structures that can't even be replicated today, even with modern-day technology. So they were seen as godlike, almost like instructors in that sense, but as soon as the Europeans started coming in, they thought it was them returning, and
it turned out bad. Okay, 479-1080-218-5726, exploringtraditions.com if you want to find out more about Mount Shasta and Lemuria. This is more of a continent, right? Lemuria?
Yes.
More of a continent. And your trip up there. So you say you didn't find anything really significant or earth-shattering, right, up in Mount Shasta?
No, definitely not.
Legends, though? Yes?
No. Just, I started talking with a lot of the people.
Had they heard anything about that?
I was hearing, like, the most outrageous stuff.
Tell me some of it, man. I want to hear.
Oh, my gosh.
It was from older folks, probably, right?
So, a lot of middle-aged people.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the one story that did get me, though, so me and my friend Danny, we were sleeping on top of Mount Shasta, and we were
Put that mic closer to your face, because I want to hear this. I want to hear this.
All right, sorry. So me and my friend Danny were sleeping on top of Mount Shasta. We had spent the day interviewing like the most outrageous people, claiming about chemtrails and this and that, and like UFOs coming down at night. Like,
man, I love it.
And so we were there, and what got us, so we were camping on this really isolated part of the meadow, and this guy had just told us, like, the night before these aliens came down and like they visited me and blah blah blah. So we're like, okay, yeah, sure. And then we went back to where we were, and right next to our campsite there were all these like little designs on the ground, like these stone designs, and we're like I wonder who built this. And then as soon as it started getting dark, this family came. They pulled up in a car, they got out, they walked over, and it was an older gentleman there with his family. And he starts telling us a story that he was the one that built it. He was the one that built these figures because they told him to build it. And we're like, okay, well, and he was really humble about it, which kind of, so everybody else was very eccentric, very like, as a matter of fact. But he was like, take it or leave it. This is what happened to me. And he was an older Hispanic gentleman. And he didn't want us to film it, but luckily my friend started the recorders and we had it going. And he was basically describing that one night he was there and they had visited him from underneath the mountain, and they were telling him what he needs to do to help humanity progress. And he went into a lot of detail regarding that. But what really got us freaked out was he's saying, right where you guys are camping, right there in those woods right behind you, that's where the giants live. That's where these gnomes live.
Holy cow.
Go stand out there. They'll come at you. And his wife was like, yeah, you don't even know. Go out there, stand out there for just 40 minutes, an hour, and you'll start to hear them walking around or like running around.
Oh, man, dude.
And we were there like kind of like a little freaked out. We were a little freaked out, and then it started getting late. We had our fire going, and then all of a sudden, this weird white object just flew through the trees, and we thought it was like an owl at first, but it was like zigzagging through the trees like I can't even describe it. It was just zigzagging like a little orb, and it flew right past us. And my friend Danny threw himself off the hammock, and we were both like, "Oh my God, what was that?" Because it almost hit us, and we thought it might have been an owl, but it was like this orb-like thing. And I mean, as skeptical as I am, like that kind of like shook me up, and we're like, all right, let's sleep in the tent tonight.
Do you have any idea what it was? Any?
No. It could have been.
Do you think it was something supernatural? Do you think it was
I couldn't.
Was it an owl?
It could have very well been an owl, but it was just the way it maneuvered through the trees in such a dramatic, exaggerated motion. I don't think it could have been an owl.
479-1080 DM at KSCO.com. That's so. He was saying that there was giant gnome-like creatures.
There were giants and these little gnome-like creatures right in the forest behind us.
What are some of the and I don't want to say craziest things, but yeah, what are some of the craziest things you heard? I mean, do you deal with or have you heard legends of shapeshifters? What's the one in American?
The Skinwalker?
The Skinwalker, right? The
Navajo.
I want to say Winnebago, but it's not the Winnebago. That's the name of it. It's something. The Wendigo.
Wendigo, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, right? So these shapeshifters. Do you hear of pterodactyls, Bigfoot? You mentioning those guys living in the caves is the closest thing I could think of. That's pretty.
So a lot of the people's the legend is that these people actually live in the caves underneath Mount Shasta, and so they come up to visit specific individuals, and there's movements, there's whole cults based around this idea, this principle.
Yeah, I know.
So like you have like the Lemurian Fellowship, the I Am movement, they all claim to have been visited by these advanced beings that live within the mountain. There's absolutely no evidence to support these beings, but this is part of the cultural movement and these spiritual ideas that perpetuate it, and so that captivates me. Even though there's no evidence to support it, that's part of the human psyche.
That's what exploring's all about, right?
Exactly.
And that's why you do it. You're an explorer. Dude, I envy you. How do you get the time to do this? I mean, how much time does it take, for instance, to go on a journey? Let's say you want to go to. Have you heard of Kincaid Caves in the Grand Canyon, the Egyptian things?
Yes.
How long does that take to go and do something?
I would imagine
your trip to Mount Shasta. How long did that take?
Just a few days.
Okay.
Because it's so close, it's so nearby. But for something like in the Grand Canyon, that might take like a week or two. I have a friend that actually went there and got arrested trying to go explore those caves.
For the Kincaid Caves, right?
Yes.
Okay, so are you familiar with the Kincaid Caves? Can you explain to the audience what it is?
I only know just a little bit.
I probably know about the same as you. So that's it. Some guy went in there. I guess his name is Kincaid. I don't know why the caves were named that, but he found a cave in the Grand Canyon, and supposedly all kinds of Egyptian artifacts are in there, right?
Yeah.
And also supposedly, this is part of the legend, an Egyptian representative came here to America, took some of what was there, and demanded that the National Park Service seal it off and not allow anybody else in there to disturb these Egyptian ruins.
That's
basically,
correct. Yeah.
Right? So that's, you understand basically about the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the extent.
Now this place really does exist to the extent that people go looking for it, right?
Exactly.
I mean, there's enough evidence there that people go looking for this.
Exactly.
Your friend went there and got
arrested. Yeah.
Arrested.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, by the National Park Service, I believe.
So how did he even get down there? I mean, how long
have no idea. I never asked the details, but I know that he went to go explore it and he got arrested. And I think just the other day he posted pictures from the expedition. He had the map where he drew out exactly where he was going to go, and I think he even has a picture of the cave entrance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can see that online, and they're real pictures. I don't know if they really came from the Grand Canyon or not, but there are pictures there.
Yep.
Absolutely, really, really cool stuff, man. 479-1080-218-5726. Fernando Gallegos, exploringtraditions.com, and the book again is The Ancients: Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. You can find the links on our Facebook page, facebook.com/flight1080. This show will be podcasted on our YouTube page, and when you're there, be sure to like and follow us. Okay, Fernando, so how long have you been doing this? Count the years. How long have you been exploring?
Not too long. Just since I was in college, while I was studying anthropology, I became really interested. So I started looking up local legends, actually. So a lot of like the Lemurian legends tied in with some of the local legends, like around Mission Peak in San Jose, that supposedly there was like a light that beamed from there. So I went up and just to go explore by myself. And what caught my attention was this wall-like structure. And so I went back and I started researching a little bit more on this wall. And supposedly this wall stretches from the South Bay all the way up to almost the Marin County, and it ends up in the ocean. So they don't know if it's geological or I mean I'm assuming it's geological, but it's interesting that this wall is there, and a lot of people speculate that it might be the remnants of the Lemurians, and so.
And that there's just eroded to the point where it looks like some kind of geological.
Even the early missionaries mentioned this in their writings, that it was like this wall, but it's like tumbled, and so like it served no purpose. What was the purpose of the wall? I mean, there's clear evidence that parts of the wall were actually later added upon by, I'm assuming, indigenous people, but whether or not it's geological, that's up in the air.
And this is Mission what?
Mission Peak.
Mission Peak
in San Jose. So you could clearly see the wall that cuts through there. It's a stone wall, and it's about, I want to say, a foot high, but it goes up as high as I think 5 feet.
Do you know if any, and this goes for anybody out there in our audience too, if you want to share a story or share a legend, share a location to go and explore locally?
Yes. So
I think that's fun, dude. You know, and some of the most fun I've had is going and looking for old spots locally, like up in Nizine Marks. There's some old cabins from the days when they used to have lumber mills up there. Mission Peak in San Jose is where you can see. Anything else in San Jose?
Let me think.
Anything cool to check out?
There's this park. I think it's Santa Teresa Park, where they have this old. It's now blocked off, but it's a spring where the Native Americans believe that like a god would appear, a goddess.
Wow.
And the spring has rejuvenation properties. So a lot of the natives, when they would put on face paint, the red paint actually originated from what is it called? The red ores that they extract mercury. What is it called? Cinnabar. Yeah. Cinnabar. So that mercury would seep into their pores, and they would go crazy.
Right.
And so, as in terms of a relief, they pray to the goddess, the Loni goddess. I can't remember her name. And the spring supposedly was part of her gift to them to heal and cure themselves from that illness.
So the paint that they would wear as traditional ceremonial paint or I don't know, war paint, but ceremonial paint.
Correct. Yeah.
Would drive them crazy, right?
Yeah.
So it had the mercury in there, which affected their brain.
Exactly. Just like the Mad Hatter, you know.
Yeah, right. Just the Mad Hatter, right? It's a mercury that affects your brain. So they believed this well had spiritual properties to help
cure themselves from that craziness. Yeah.
Did they have any idea that the craziness was coming from the paint, or they just?
I don't think they had any idea. No, because they kept.
And where is that?
That's in Santa Teresa County Park in South San Jose.
Santa Teresa Park. Wow, dude, this is great. I love this kind of stuff, man. That is fantastic. 479-1080. Let's see what Kenny has to say. He's calling from Salinas. If you have any suggestions, local places to explore, I would like to hear them. Have you explored any places in Santa Cruz County?
Not too much. Not too much. Yeah.
All right. Any ideas out there? We would love to hear them. Kenny is calling from Salinas. You're in the air, Kenny.
Yes, Mr. Michael, sir. I just have a question for your wonderful guest, and I just want to know if he'll be straight up. Does he believe that there is such a thing as the Bigfoot? And I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you.
You want to answer that? Certainly,
sure.
It's a popular legend, right? And it's not just one culture; it spans many cultures.
Yeah. So there's this amazing book written by, I believe she's an anthropologist that worked in the Central Valley. She documented all these incredible legends of these giant creatures that lived in California, and the extent of these legends. Mentioning this hairy man beast that would kidnap people and take them back. I want to believe. I really do want to believe that there's something out there. There's a tribe, the Yoka tribe in Central California. They have this hidden cave, and on the hidden cave is this massive mural of this what they call the weeping hairy man, and he weeps for humanity because according to the legend, that he tried to approach people, but he was so hideous that he had to retract himself from society, and he had to spend the rest of his life alone. And so that's part of the legend. But you see like this ancient painting of this hairy man beast, and there's a whole legend stemming from that. And I mean, I really want to believe. I want to see more evidence. Like, that would be exciting to go find.
That's exactly the way I feel too. I want to believe. I have this conversation with my kids, especially my daughter who's 10, right? And I think that you are. I envy you, because you haven't lost that curiosity that comes when you're a kid, right? You haven't lost that. That's fantastic, dude. You could hear it in your voice. You could see it in your eyes. You still got that young. Curious spark, which is fantastic. My daughter, I have this conversation with her, and we talk about Bigfoot, and I want to believe, and I want to tell her that's true, but, if you think about it, if it's a physical being, there's just no way. There's no food source out there. There's not enough water, right? Now, if it's spiritual, I don't know. It could be, and I have no idea, then all bets are off, right? Because it doesn't need to eat, doesn't need any of that stuff. It would also explain why they haven't been captured. It would also explain a whole bunch of stuff, why they haven't been shot, why they haven't been captured, why. It would explain a lot.
So the same time I went to Mount Shasta, right before I hit up Mount Shasta, that one time that we encountered that weird thing. Mm-hmm. So we actually went up to Willow Creek where they filmed the Bigfoot video, that infamous Patterson film.
The Patterson film, yeah.
So we went camping as close as we could to the actual creek, and there were legends that at night it would come into this specific campground and basically walk along like between the tents, and we were excited, but we didn't get to see anything, and it was definitely exciting.
Did you hear anything?
No. Yeah, we were hoping for something.
That is awesome. I've heard on that film. Now this is going to sound nutty, that there is not just one Bigfoot in that video. If you slow it down and look at it, you will see a group of Bigfoots in the bushes that are watching this one, and so she's walking back to the group that is in the bushes, and they say if you look at the film, it's there. I don't know. 479-1080, DM at KSCO.com. Cloudy conditions, lows around 55 degrees. Tomorrow should be sunny by noon. Highs will be around 71 degrees. Small craft advisory out on the Monterey Bay this evening. West winds as well, 15 to 25 knots, diminishing to 5 to 15 knots after midnight. Wind waves 2 to 4 feet. West swells 4 feet at 10 seconds, along with patchy fog after midnight. 5:06 is the time. Headlines are coming up next. They're being brought to you by Primo Roofing. If you need a new roof to protect your home or business, you can rest easy because Primo Roofing has got a variety of easy, flexible finance programs with no money down, no income verification, and 100% financing. Call or click for a free estimate. PrimoRoofing.com, 831-443-3605. Again, that's PrimoRoofing.com or 831-443-3605. KSCO News Time is 5:06. Headlines are up next. Here's Phil Deseth.
Thanks, Dave, and good afternoon, Central Coast. An established Scotts Valley shopping center has been sold. The Scotts Village Center houses several high-profile businesses, including CVS and Safeway. The Palo Alto-based development firm McNellis Partners paid $15.35 million for the center, which was originally developed in 1984. At this time, the fate of the shopping center has not been made public. And authorities made an arrest for the 2004 murder of a 17-year-old. Isaac Guzman was fatally stabbed in broad daylight in Watsonville. Authorities believe Mario Lozano is connected with the case. He's being extradited to the U.S. from Mexico. Amazon is paying $1.5 million in civil penalties and settlement fees after the Monterey County District Attorney, along with 22 other DAs, took legal action. Calvin Menn has the details.
The action stemmed from allegations that Amazon advertised and sold plastic products that were misleadingly labeled biodegradable and compostable. That is in violation of a California law that requires products to meet a scientific standard. Prosecutors say Amazon officials quickly stopped sales and worked to come in compliance with the law. For KSCO, I'm Calvin Menn.
Authorities are looking for two men who robbed a Safeway on Wednesday at the Crossroads Shopping Center in Carmel. The suspects confronted a store employee at about 5:30 p.m. and claiming to have a gun, although no weapon was seen. Photos of the robbers can be seen on the Facebook page of the Monterey County Sheriff's Office. The public's assistance is being sought to help name a newborn penguin. Susan Simon has more on that.
The names have been narrowed down to Beck, in honor of John Steinbeck, Bixby, for the iconic Bixby Bridge in Big Sur, Cypress, after the native Monterey cypress tree, or Watson, short for Watsonville, which is home to many of the staff, volunteers, and visitors, and also one of the aquarium's teen programs. People can vote on one of the four names by going online to tfaforms.com/4688452. That's tfaforms.com/4688452. The name will be announced Monday, August 6th. For KSCO, this is Susan Simon.
While the California Highway Patrol officers can't cite drivers without seeing an incident, reporting reckless and angry drivers does help the CHP. CHP Information Officer Krista Drake had this to say about the subject.
But if you report it to us after the fact, we keep it on file. We send out a letter to the registered owner of the car that's being driven crazy. It's a warning them to not continue that behavior. But we keep all that on file. So if it comes down the line and that person's had 3 or 4 complaints against them doing the same behavior, and then all of a sudden they cause a crash, and we can look back and see the history of, oh, hey, this person's been reported for reckless driving numerous times, it helps us present a case.
Officer Drake advises people who witness aggressive and angry drivers to take down license plates and if it's safe, take a photo of the license plate for a follow-up investigation. A local store will be celebrating 50 years in business this weekend. Andy Lenz, a co-owner of Lenz Arts in Santa Cruz, spoke with KSCO.
The thing is that our group, Lens, we sell knowledge along with our art supply. So if you come in and you want, say, 5 brushes, we'll try to talk you into one good one. In fact, if you come in to try to buy something, first thing we'll ask you, well, what do you have at home? And so we're in for the long run. If you have the supplies already, we'll say, good, come back when you need something from us.
Lens Arts is located in downtown Santa Cruz at 142 River Street near Pacific Avenue. It's 5:11. Time to get back over to Flight 1080. I'm Phil Deseth for KSCO Radio.
Our homes and gardens are always in need of our attention. We can try to take care of everything at once, or we can take care of them one small project at a time.
Let us help you get big things done, one small project at a time. Hello out there. Lindsay Scarborough here to introduce our local family-owned Scarborough Lumber and Ace Hardware locations. We are now celebrating our 70th year of providing you with just about everything you need for your homes and gardens. And our family-owned business has grown to include 7 locations throughout the Monterey Bay area, including our lumber and building supply centers in Boulder Creek, Ben Lomond and Scotts Valley, hardware stores in Scotts Valley, Carmel, and Carmel Mid-Valley, and a full-service garden center in Scotts Valley. When you need it for your home or garden, you will find it right now with the help of our friendly and very knowledgeable Scarborough team. We are 4 generations of the Scarborough family working for your family. So please, ask for Scarborough and say hello. We would love to meet you.
KSCO has some of the most intelligent listeners on the planet, and the most intelligent minds want to know, how will the new tax bill affect me?
Find out on the next Money Moves.
What are my options for taking Social Security benefits?
Don't miss the next Money Moves.
How should I give money to my kids?
Listen to Money Moves for more information.
What is a required minimum distribution?
Find out on the next Money Moves.
Do I need an estate plan?
Don't miss the next Money Moves.
When, where, and how do I enroll in Medicare? If you want answers to these and other hot financial topics, listen to Money Moves. Host Pamela Fugit-Hetrick and her guests have tips and tools you need so you can manage your money effectively. That's Money Moves, 7 p.m. Thursdays here on KSCO AM 1080 or 104.1 on your FM dial.
If someone should ask, Tell them you heard it on AM 1080 KSCO.
You're listening to AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. 831-479-1080 is the number. 831-218-5726 with your text messages. DM at ksco.com with your emails. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Flight 1080. Our guest is Fernando Gallegos. He is author of the book The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. Also author of the blog exploringtraditions.com. You should really check that out. There's a lot of fun stuff there you can check out for free. But again, we want you to check out his book as well. You can buy it on Amazon. You can find a link there at exploringtraditions.com, and we have it on our Facebook page. You can get this book. What's the cost of this book, Fernando?
It's $15.99.
15?
Yeah, 99.
Wow, that's great. That's fantastic. $15. Yeah, I would highly recommend this book. Again, it's called The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. Go to our Facebook page and you'll find a link there. Okay, let's get to a phone call, and then you and I will keep discussing. We'll start talking about how about the lost city of Paititi? How do you say this?
Paititi.
Paititi. Mm-hmm. And that, you were telling me, is a lost city of gold?
Yes.
All right, man. Okay, we'll talk about that. Let's get to JD's call. He is calling from Salinas. Thank you for your call, JD. You're in the air.
Hi, Dave. You got another great program.
Well, thank you.
I listen a little bit every day.
Thank you.
I have 3 points I want to make. One, have you been to the Bigfoot Museum in Boulder Creek?
I have, yes.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to be sure to remind everybody it's there. And you were asking about places for you to go in Monterey, in Santa Cruz.
That's a
This
place.
is not exactly Santa Cruz, but be sure to explore Nicene Marks Park. There's a lot there that most people don't know about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I listened yesterday afternoon about the rent control thing, and I so much wanted to make a comment, but I was too busy. I'm reminded of what an old president of General Motors said, and I've kept it as a motto. He said, if it's good for General Motors, it's good for the country. So my motto is, if it's good for JD, it's good for the country.
All right,
so you
JD.
keep that in mind when you're supporting the rent control ideas, and also keep in mind that the opposition is thinking the same thing. And encourage your people to get out there and vote one way or the other on it. That's all I've got. The book sounds wonderful. I'm interested in all that stuff, so I'm going to look into it.
All right,
That's
JD.
all I got.
Thank you for your call, 479-1080. Again, if you want to find the book, go to the website, exploringtraditions.com, or go to our Facebook page, and you'll find a link there to his book and to the blog. Okay, Bigfoot Museum, and I want phone calls if anybody has any suggestions for Fernando or anywhere else. That's Santa Clara County, Santa Cruz County, Monterey County, places to go explore, because I'm like you, Fernando. I like to explore. I don't call myself, I guess I'd call myself an explorer. I just don't go travel too far. But sure, what's wrong with exploring? Like you said, Nicene Marks, there's evidence of the old logging mill days. I mean, it's still there. You can find ruins there. You can find nails, railroad trestles. You can find all kinds of stuff up there, and it's still up there. It's great. It's fun. He also suggested the Bigfoot Museum, which is really cool. Have you been there?
Oh, yeah.
You have been to the Bigfoot Museum?
In Salton, yeah.
Yeah, in Felton. That's a great one. Let's see, 479-1080. Any other places you would suggest? We'd like to hear. Okay, Fernando, the lost city of Paititi. Did I say it right that time?
Correct.
Paititi.
Yeah. Paititi.
You were saying it is also known as the City of Gold, the Lost City of Gold.
Yes.
Right?
A lot of people associate it with the El Dorado myth as well. So.
El Dorado, what is that? I always thought it was like a golden statue, a golden man.
So yeah, the actual legend originates from when I think it was the chief elder would cover himself in gold dust and immerse himself into the waters of a specific lake in modern day Colombia. But for for the Spaniards, they started interpreting that as like a city. I don't know how it came about. They assumed there must have been more gold, and this whole legend of El Dorado sprung out from that one ritual. And over time, when they started invading Peru, they started hearing a legend of Paititi, and the two legends kind of merged into one. And
so are they? They're both the same, El Dorado and Paititi?
To some people, I don't think so. They're two independent myths, but for many of the Spanish conquistadors, it kind of merged into this one mythology or this one common story.
Mm-hmm. And where is Paititi? Where is this located?
To the Amazon jungles east of Cusco in Peru.
So this is actually in the Amazon?
Yes, yeah. Deep in the heart of the Amazon.
And how did you find, how did you go about looking for this place?
It's a long story. So when I was in college, I studying at San Jose State University, I had the opportunity to go study with the Quero. The Quero is an indigenous nation that lived fairly isolated up until the 1950s, when anthropologists started interviewing them and started.
You mean isolated from civilization?
Yes.
So
yes.
In the 1950s, they were like wild, feral, wild people.
No. They weren't feral. They still maintained these Incan traditions. Like
Okay.
This was in the highlands, so
Okay.
they were very well civilized in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But they lived fairly isolated away. I mean, they became part of incorporated into a hacienda system, but they still maintained the intact Inca traditions. According to legends, and this is where it gets weird. According to legends, when the Spaniards started ransacking Cusco, the Incan capital, the high priest fled into the mountains, never to be seen or heard from again. And many believe that the community of the Quero are the descendants of those high Incan priests. They're part of the continuation of that lineage.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, they maintain a lot of the sacred mystical traditions that originated with the Inca.
We were talking, I think, off the air about a tribal elderman that was held for ransom, right?
So it was the Incan Empire got divided between two brothers during a civil war, and that's why the Spaniards were so easily able to conquer the Incan Empire,
Mm-hmm.
because two brothers were fighting over the throne. They captured the Emperor Atahualpa, and part of the ransom was in exchange for the gold. So, how to explain this? The Spaniards kept Atahualpa locked up, and in exchange for his freedom, they had to fill 3 chambers of gold up to the brim. And as the gold was being diverted from the main Incan capital, they decided to kill him anyways. So most of the gold didn't even make it to the chambers. And so many believe that when the gold was diverted, it was diverted to some unknown location,
Mm-hmm.
this being the lost city of Paititi. So somewhere out there, perhaps there might be a city of gold.
So the city of Paititi is essentially a king's ransom.
It's a continuation of it. Yeah. So the Incas were known for a lot of, to maintain a lot of gold. When the Spaniards entered the temples, the sacred temples in the Incan capital of Cusco, they saw gold-plated walls and all these artifacts of gold. So where was that gold created? Where did that gold originate?
Mm-hmm.
So many believe that they extracted the gold from the Amazon and took it. They processed it somewhere, and then eventually made its way back to Cusco.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps that city still maintains a lot of those gold artifacts and things like that.
So I'm assuming then that there is gold in the Amazon then, right?
Yes. So right where I was exploring is that consists of 2% of the world gold that gets extracted from there. So
from the Amazon.
From that particular area, 2% of the world's gold comes from there.
2% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think of the world supply, it's a lot.
Exactly. So that's how I became interested in the mythology. Was
Mm-hmm.
when I went to go study with this community. I heard the story of Inkari,
Mm-hmm.
and so according to their legend, Inkari is this godlike figure that created Cusco, the main city, and then created their community, and then decided to retreat into the Amazon as the Spaniards began colonizing the rest of Peru. And so, according to them, if you follow the Incan Trail down is where it leads to this lost city, and that's where the god Inkari resides to this day.
So you say you take the trail down. Are you taking the trail down into a valley, or you mean
down into the Amazon? So you're up in the high Andes, and we're talking 14,500 feet.
Holy cow!
So I'll go into detail about the last expedition, but that's where I learned the mythology from.
So you go over the Andes, and on the other side is the Amazon.
Correct, and it's that in itself is a crazy journey.
Well, what's in the Andes?
What do you mean?
I mean, what's in the Andes Mountains? Is there anything on your way into the Amazon that any legends up there in the Andes?
Yeah, there's plenty. So you have these massive stone structures. Like I'm sure you've seen it. These complex stone structures that can't be replicated even by.
Is Machu Picchu in the Andes?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's all within the Sacred Valley. You have these complex stone structures that can't be replicated even by today's standards, and there's a network. Like just think of like the Roman Empire, how they stretched across the entire continent through these intricate stone roads. These roads were way more complex than anything Rome could have come up with, and they crisscrossed all throughout the Andes and into the Amazon. So many of these roads aren't even fully explored. Some of these roads lead directly from the heartland of Cusco in the middle of the Andes down into the Amazon, and that's where I went to go explore.
So you've actually been there?
Yes.
Have you been to Machu Picchu?
Yes. Yeah.
What is it like? Is there did you get any kind of weird feelings? Any kind of spiritual feelings?
The first time I went,
satisfaction.
So the first time I went with the actual Quero elders. We went to go perform a ceremony up on top of Machu Picchu, and that was quite a spiritual thing. The second time I went, it was just so overcrowded with tourists. Like you couldn't really enjoy. Everybody's taking selfies and things like that. So, yeah, it was a shame. But so after that first excursion with the Quero, and we went to the different archaeological sites to learn how they used it in ancient times, because they are the holders of this secret wisdom. And so they taught us, like, this is what we used it for, this is what this specifically means to them, and we learned that. And then I later on returned with my now wife. We went through Bolivia and into Peru, and exploring the same locations, even Machu Picchu. And that point in time, I decided I wanted to make a run for the Amazon. I've never been there. There's so many legends coming from the Amazon.
Yeah, dude.
So we went deep into the Amazon, and we went to a place called Puxaro. So Puxaro is like this massive rock wall covered in petroglyphs. And according to the locals, if you're able to decipher these petroglyphs, it leads to a map, the map of where Paititi is located. So that in itself is a crazy trip, because you're talking into an area it's called the intangible zone, because they don't want people to go in. You need special government permits to even enter this area, and we went in deep. And this is native territory. So,
I don't want to sound like an idiot, but are you talking like headhunter? I mean, is that a real thing down there in the Amazon? Cannibals?
Probably in the north of Peru, historically, yeah. But where we were, it was just it's known for uncontacted tribes. They're not now uncontacted, because they've been contacted by a lot of missionaries and people of that sort, and that in itself is.
Yeah, you said that hasn't turned out too good for them. I mean, we've heard that story before, right?
I mean, you have diseases, you have a lot of illegal activities, and it's pushing these uncontacted people closer and closer to villages, and it's creating a very hostile environment for a lot of people.
Really?
Yeah.
Creating a hostile environment between who?
Between the people that are now, quote unquote, civilized or part of the global economy, and these people who prefer to live as they were born out in the wild.
So what is there, some kind of class warfare going on, or
No, because of these illegal activities, you have illegal loggers, miners, different people. So they're forcing these people off their ancestral lands, and because now there's no more resources for them, there's no more food as it was once was abundant. They started raiding a lot of these villages, and it turns out it turned out deadly in a lot of instances. And so there's strict rules on how they go about trying to help them, but at the same time keep them in isolation, because that's what ultimately is the best for them, is to keep them, in voluntary isolation, I guess you could say.
And that's happening in the Amazon?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
What else is, because when I think of the Amazon, I think of that guy who was attacked by a giant python while crossing a river. I think of I just think of all kinds of weird things in the Amazon, right? I mean, there's weird things out there, isn't there? I'm not just talking myths. I mean, real weird things.
Yeah. So I mean, when you
jaguars and spiders, snakes.
Yeah. The first thing I got was my vaccination for yellow fever, and I mean, there's malaria. You have all these different tropical diseases. The most poisonous snakes in the Americas. One of the largest pit vipers in all of the Americas happened to cross right in front of me, and that was a scary thing. And
how big was it? How big was the snake?
It could grow up to 12 feet.
Wow!
Luckily, this one wasn't that big, and it will kill you like within hours. The venom is just so deadly. And you have like pumas, jaguar. I saw a puma. Just my guide was in the forest. He came out to the main trail and out pounced the puma. And jumped right into the village, and the villagers were just yelling, "Gato, gato, cat, cat," and it was crazy, because you see a lot of people even with scars. Like, according to them, the jaguars always go for the head, and pumas always go for the throat. That's what they said.
Wow.
And yeah, there's clear evidence of them being attacked by these animals.
And any supernatural mythologies that you became familiar with in the Amazon?
Oh my gosh! So there's the legend of Chuya Chucky. So the legend states that as if you're alone walking through the wilderness, and you might hear some whistling, you might hear something grabs your attention, either a person or a whistle, and as you start following it, you notice a creature or a deer or some type of shape-shifting animal that has one hooved foot. So it might be a person that you might recognize. Hey, follow me, come follow me. But if you look down carefully, you see the one hoof. And for them, you're supposed to run away. First thing is run away.
Yeah.
So the point of the Chuichaki is to basically lure you off the main road deeper and deeper into the jungle until you get lost. And when you become lost, it frightens you to the point where your spirit goes away from your body and it joins nature. So in that sense, it gains your spirit by frightening you, and then you die a few weeks later from the fright. And so
that is crazy.
So
holy cow.
So that's the main Chuichaki legend. It was always a very feared thing, entity.
Do they believe this?
Everybody has like their own personal story of like, oh my God, it killed my uncle. Like, yeah, there's crazy stories, and but now it's taking on like a different form. Now it's seen as like the protector of the Amazon. It's seen as a protector of the jungle, because the jungle is being dramatically deforested in this area, and all these loggers, these illegal loggers in the area, are telling stories of seeing the Chuichaki. So they think of it now as like the sacred guardian. They're trying to protect the forest from this illegal deforestation.
It's almost as like the enemy is my friend, right?
Exactly.
So this guy's going after these guys, these loggers and stuff, the invaders, going after them. That's great. We love him. He's on our side now.
Exactly.
So this thing again, the Chuichaki?
Yes, Chuichaki.
Is any life form, but it has a hoof. That's the one giveaway, right? This thing has a hoof, and its mission is to lure you off into the forest,
off the main path, correct?
Off the main path, and then scare you to steal your soul.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Wow,
and there's certain trees. Crazy. There's certain trees that it's associated with, so you try to avoid those trees. Like, hey, that's a Chuichaki tree. Stay away from.
So is a Chuichaki? Is this nature embodied in a physical being? I mean, so it steals your soul, and your soul just kind of goes out into nature. That is it, right? It's absorbing your soul.
That's one way of putting it. Yeah,
it's almost like the forest, like a spirit of the forest.
Exactly.
That is awesome, and this is widely believed that they.
Oh yeah.
Now here's something. We gotta get out of here to a break. If something is, here's my thing on Bigfoot. He's not real, right? It's not physically real. But does it matter when people believe in it? Does it really matter whether or not it exists, right? I mean, for all intents and purposes, it exists. I mean, if you're going to go out there and get scared to death, and they call it, the Chuya Chucky or whatever they call it, does it really matter to you because you're dead, right? I mean, does it really matter? If people believe in it, it's real. It's almost like it gets the boost that it needs to become reality.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
479-1080-2185-726. It is 5:33. Phil Deeseth is standing by with your headlines, so we're going to let him do his thing. KSCO.com, news, traffic, weather, podcasts, and more, all right there. Be sure to check it out. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook page. You'll find the book and the blog from our guest, exploringtraditions.com. KSCO headlines, 5:34. Here's Phil.
Thanks, Dave, and good evening, everyone. The public's assistance is being sought to help name a newborn female penguin at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. The name's being narrowed down to Beck in honor of John Steinbeck, Bixby for the iconic Bixby Bridge, and Cypress after the native Monterey cypress tree, or even Watson, short for Watsonville, which there are many staff, volunteers, and visitors involved with the aquarium's teen program. People can vote on one of the four names by going online to tfaforums.com. And a Watsonville man was arrested after police found an illegal gun in his car. 23-year-old Raphael Holguin was stopped near the intersection of Hall and Johnson Roads on Tuesday night. Officers saw several ounces of marijuana jars on the passenger seat, prompting them to search the vehicle. During the search, they found a .40 caliber pistol along with 2 high-capacity magazines. Holguin was booked into Santa Cruz County Jail. And the top junior garlic chef has been named after 8 chefs between the ages of 6 and 15 faced off for the title at the 40th annual Gilroy Garlic Festival this last weekend. Each chef had 2 hours to prepare a dish, and a panel of 4 judges scored them on taste, appearance, and creativity. 6-year-old Addison Dell won with a dish of garlic mac and cheese, garlic chicken tenders, and roasted asparagus. It's 5:35. Time to get back to Flight 1080. I'm Phil Deeseth for KSCO Radio.
KO Sports Question of the Day is brought to you by the Scarborough Lumber Ace Hardware stores of the Monterey Bay Area. Whether you needed to build a home or fix a home, you will find it at one of the 7 family-owned Scarborough locations. And please, ask for a Scarborough. We'd love to meet you.
The more the merrier. I'm KO, and I'll be right back with your sports question of the day.
Business owners, get money you need in 2 to 3 days at businessmoneytogo.com. Business Money to Go is a network of reputable small business lenders that compete to lend you money. When you qualify with a one-page application, Business Money to Go will get you the best loan at the best rate in 2 to 3 days. Get $500,000 to $500,000 in 2 to 3 days at businessmoneytogo.com. businessmoneytogo.com.
We spend billions every year sweating it out at the gym. That sweat contains essential nutrients our bodies need to stay healthy. If we fail to replace the nutrients, our bodies will begin breaking down. You can get all 90 of the essential nutrients your body needs for less than a daily latte with the 90 for Life Healthy Body Start Pack at nutrientstogo.com. That's nutrientstogo.com. It's easy, delicious, and they are essential.
When it comes to baseball teams, MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred's mindset is the more the merrier. Many of us agree. The commish recently hinted that he hopes to be around for MLB expansion. He said that moving to 32 teams would lead to division and playoff realignment, and it would be great for the sport. Manfred offered fans a list of 6 cities he considers to be viable options for expansion. They include Portland, Las Vegas, Charlotte, and Nashville in the U.S., and Montreal and Vancouver in Canada. Question for baseball fans: which U.S. city is your top pick for a new team? Portland, Vegas, Charlotte, or Nashville? Answer today's question and learn how yesterday's question was answered by logging on to KSCO.com. That's KSCO.com.
Thanks for listening to AM 1080 KSCO.
Four 479-1080. You're listening to Flight 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. It's 5:38. If you want to get on board with us, give us a call. Send a text, 218-5726. We're hanging out with Fernando Gallegos, exploringtraditions.com. The book is called The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. And again, that is super cool. The book is 15, 16 bucks, you said, right?
Yes.
Fernando, that's super affordable. The blog, though, is free, and you can find right now, go there and find stories of all the stuff that we're talking about, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So the stories I saw up there were the Mount Shasta. These are people living under Mount Shasta, right?
Correct.
So these are legends again.
Legends, yes.
These are legends that you go and explore, right? People living under Mount Shasta, the lost city of Paititi, which is or Paititi,
correct,
and that is the lost city of gold, right?
Yes.
Now you say this is gold that was left over from paying the ransom, right? The guy got killed, the king got killed, and the ransom wasn't paid.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what this city is.
Some part of the gold could be part of that ransom, but it could very well be that there was a stash of gold prior to that as well.
You know, in down in Carmel, there's a mission. Oh, I think it's still there. Not a mission, but the Carmel Church. A very, very old church. The remains of Junipero Serra are there. And the legend is that there was a pirate. I don't remember if it was, I don't remember his name, but a pirate had come to the Monterey Bay. They saw him coming, and they went to the church and got all the gold out of there, got it all out of there, stashed it all in the hills. When nothing happened, thankfully, the church was fine, nothing happened there. When the pirates took off, they tried to go and find all the gold, but they couldn't find it all because it had just been stashed so sparsely and so well. Legend is that some of it is still out there in the surrounding hills out there by the church. Yeah, really, really cool, man. So you went out. You go. Where's the closest place you've been to explore?
Let me think.
Mount Shasta, because I'm wondering, how far do you have to go to
There's plenty of
to find a good exploration, right? So, a lot of our listeners don't have a chance to, or the funds to go, because I'm sure it's expensive. You have to save a lot, right, to go do these things. Within a couple hours, there's got to be some fun places to go.
I mean, the adventure starts in the library.
Mhm.
You can look up plenty of stories, local stories from either indigenous people or people coming from the early settlers, and there's lots of mythology, and you could. And these are local places, like places that surround your own house, and you could just go explore to see if there's any validity, or just to go have fun. I find it quite interesting coming across these awesome stories, and it's like, oh, this literally happened just down the road.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of getting out there and just.
It's almost like the exploration begin. What do you find interesting, and there you go. You're exploring, right? Like, it begins in the library. You learn about local history. You go out there. And you explore.
Exactly.
Right? You learn a little bit about history, and you go out there and you explore. And whether or not it's the Great Wall of China that you're exploring, or it might just be some rock formation, or maybe an old building foundation, you get out there and you explore, and you get to touch history and touch legends, local legends and local lore. Right? You get to go out there and touch it. It's great, man.
I was talking about Santa Clara County Park. Right there, there's another legend of hidden gold. Like somebody was killed, and they had hidden this gold stash. And
really, in that park.
In that park, and I mean, I definitely don't recommend you going out there with your
digging.
Exactly, like don't ever do that. You will go to jail. Like,
do you know if it's illegal to go out there with the metal scanner?
Yeah, it is.
It is. Wow, wow. That sucks.
And if they catch you, you're going to have a really bad time. So I don't recommend it.
All right, so let's talk about. Let's see, what else did we talk about? Anything else you want to mention about Paititi, the lost city of gold in Paititi? Now this is in the Amazon, you said, right?
Correct. So I could go and.
Did you tell me what you found? You went to look for it.
Okay, so
correct.
The main thing was I teamed up with an ex-oil company employee. He had maps. Surveying maps that as they were going through the jungle, they would come across these archaeological sites. He was working on behalf of this oil company based out of Texas.
So these are all oil maps, right? These are all
yes, these are official maps.
These are high quality maps. I mean, this is not just, hey, you turn left at the tree stump and these guys, and everything marked exactly. And
as he or another team would be going through, he would mark them down on the map, these archaeological sites. The official story is that there are no archaeological sites. There's nothing of cultural significance. So therefore, this area is okay to be explored for oil purposes and exploited for those purposes. And according to him, a lot of these sites were being destroyed to prevent any type of government intervention.
Right.
The indigenous population, because this is on the indigenous Americari Reserve, they found out about this. They were hearing these stories, so they started frantically trying to search for these locations as well. So as of last year, the oil company officially pulled out, and so that was our time basically to try to move in. So I had heard the story of the lost city of Paititi through the indigenous people that I was studying back in my college years. So they made mention of this lost Incan Road that leads from their community down into the Amazon. And we began kind of comparing notes at that point. So if the God Inkari created this community and then retreated into the Amazon to the lost city of gold, perhaps that matches up to his maps of the Amazon, which is directly where this road leads. And we went up last year to go into the about 14,500 feet in the Andes, go down to the road and see how far we could go. But we fell behind due to me getting sick. I got really bad altitude sickness. So we made it a certain distance, and sure enough, this is Incan Road. This might even predate the Inca. A lot of archaeologists in the 1960s actually documented these areas as pre-Incan as well. So how ancient this might be, who knows? So at that point, we explored there, and then I took off by myself into the Amazon, and he went back through the jungle back to it.
Isn't that kind of dangerous going by yourself?
I took a guide with me. Okay. I always have a guide.
Why is that?
Because it's highly dangerous. You might enter an area that people might not take too kindly to.
So do you hire the guide because to help you watch out for people, to help you watch out for native animals?
Everything. Yeah.
How about quicksand? Does that exist there, or is that just Hollywood?
It might be just Hollywood. Yeah, but one of the villages that I visited was it was called Shipitari. It was on the border of Manu and the Maracay Reserve, and that's where the uncontacted tribe, the Machu Picchu, were located, because they were being pushed by these illegal miners and loggers. And so, because they have dwindling resources, they had just recently gone into the village and killed a young man, and it was quite tragic. And this is a common theme, and so they had people patrolling the village 4 times a day, I believe, around the village, just the perimeter, to make sure that they haven't tried to encroach and basically try to take stuff, food and pots and pans and things of that sort. But it's dangerous, and so going there and not knowing that, you could be at great risk.
Yeah, you could walk into the wrong situation.
And so that's why you need to go with somebody who's well versed with the people and the situations and is able to actually diffuse the situation. The guide that I specifically hired, had gone in previously in many expeditions, famous expeditions, to go look for the same city of gold. they came across this massive rock face who Manuel had just discovered a few years prior. So as he was going through the Amazon with the oil company, they came across this massive rock face.
Mm-hmm.
And according to them, these are the guardians of the jungle. These are the guardians of the area. And beyond that is the lost city. And so Manuel had discovered that while on contract with the oil company. And my guide, who's also named Fernando, he had come across that a few years after that. And so he was with teaming up with a Spanish explorer, basically trailblazing in the middle of nowhere, trying to come across these sites. And they would come across different ruins and stuff of that sort. So that again supports the idea that the Amazon was well populated at that time, at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not that they were wiped out from diseases or what have you, the bottom line is these areas are being decimated from these illegal activities, and the government is going as far as trying to they're so desperate for money or things of that sort, contracts from oil companies, and so they're willing to destroy these sites. And that's the held belief with a lot of these indigenous people.
And so when you say that, we covered a story here a couple of weeks ago where there was a housing development company digging, trying to prepare some land to build some houses, and they found remains. They took a picture. Somebody took a picture, sent it to the foreman or whoever was in charge, said, "Hey, look what we found." And he said, No. You cover that stuff. You get rid of that stuff so that we can build. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, exactly.
So these guys destroy everything and say, "Hey, there's nothing of significance here. It's just dirt.
Exactly.
So we might as well build here." What they don't tell anybody is there was something of significance there. They bulldozed it.
Exactly. So when I had first gone into the Amazon, right after I had gone in, I wanted to research as much about this lost city as I could, because it was just so intriguing to me. And that's when I came across this activist. He had been living in that area and had quote unquote infiltrated the oil company, the main guy that was overseeing the entire project. He walked into his room and saw this huge map marked with archaeological sites, of which officially don't exist. And so he ran off with these maps, and he got threats, and they basically told him get out, and he was being stalked. He swears up and down that they were going to kill him. And so he left with these maps and posted them online. These are smaller maps, not like the ones.
So you see, these are maps of spots that don't officially exist. So do you mean that they exist, but just they're not known, or that they used to exist and they got rid of them?
The map sites that still exist. But so his maps don't have any of that, but he saw it on the wall, clear as day. This is where it's pinpointed.
And this is his homeland, so he knows where those places are.
No. So this was the activist.
Okay.
He was an American.
Okay.
So he gained their trust. He gained the guy's trust and walked into the office and saw everything. And he knows for a fact that they're covering up these archaeological sites. And so I met up with him actually right here in Felton. We met up and we exchanged information and research and stuff like that. And he was telling me this is what happened to him. And that's when I found out about Manuel, and that's when I reached out to him afterwards, because he had met Manuel in the jungle as well. And so Manuel was very charismatic. He's very I want to say environmental. He was very environmentally conscious, and so that's why he found it important to try to mark down as many archaeological sites as he could to help preserve for future generations, because this might not be here in a few years. So yeah.
What are some of the other lost cities? Are there lost cities? I mean, Paititi can't be the only one, or is it the only lost city?
So there's that mythology of there's one main city. So you have Colonel Fawcett. He disappeared trying to search for another city, which he called Z. He described it in very much the same way as Paititi.
Z. Someone sent me a text message, and I thought they were being... I got rid of it because I thought that's crazy. But yeah, somebody mentioned that too.
Yeah, the lost city of Z.
What is it?
It's another city. It's described almost in the same way of El Dorado or Paititi,
but clearly not the same city. It's
it might not be. I think it's more on the Brazilian side of the border. I know a few explorers that have gone out there trying to retrace his steps and try to find any clues to the validity of his exploration. He disappeared with his son, which is a tragic.
Any ideas
story.
what happened?
I honestly think he was killed off by what are they called? Like these.
The tribesmen?
No. God, what are they called? The people that just basically try to go exploit the natural resources and stuff like that. They just happened to see him and basically like robbers, and they saw that they were well equipped, and so they probably took advantage of that. But yeah, nobody has an idea of what happened to them.
Is that a danger that you or any other explorer faces out there?
Yeah.
Criminals?
Oh yeah.
And,
so that area that I was focusing on the Americari Reserve next to Manu National Park, you have illegal miners, illegal loggers, a lot of drug cartel operations operating from there. So if you're venturing deep enough, you might stumble across one of these operations, and then their first instinct is, oh my God, it's the government trying to close on me. So they're gonna do what they have to do to basically
kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
And no one's going to know it. They're going to think he got attacked by a mountain lion or a jaguar or puma or whatever it is, right? The forest is a dangerous place.
Exactly. So there's always that danger. And that area is so heavily decimated by illegal mining operations that it's almost on a ridiculous scale.
Mining for gold?
Mining for gold. So all the rivers there are basically polluted with mercury. So it's almost impossible to eat the fish.
Going back to something you mentioned earlier about water, when we were talking about Mount Shasta, the big flood is common to a lot of cultures, right? I mean, talking Noah's flood, the flooding, the flood. A lot of cultures talk about the flood. Is that something that they talk about down there in the rainforest?
Not in the rainforest, but in the Andes. There's several stories where, in these stories, basically they said that the llama or whatever they were herding basically told them that there's going to be a flood. You have to escape it now. Let's go up into the mountains. There's another story of where Viracocha hid Mama Okio and can't remember his name, but basically the two main, Adam and Eve, the equivalent of Adam and Eve. He hid them in the highest peak during the Great Flood to basically wipe out all these quote-unquote giants. That's another story.
Giants?
Yeah, giants.
I mean, actual giants, because that's not just, that's a common...
Yeah, that's a common theme.
Right, a common theme, and you know that, right, an explorer. I know that as just somebody who sits on the couch and watches TV, but that's fascinating.
Yeah, according to the Incan legend, the god Viracocha created these massive giants in a period known as darkness, and at that same time he created the equivalent of Adam and Eve, and he saw that these giants were disobeying him and basically up to no good, so he decided to flood the world and let Adam and Eve basically survive and then come back down and repopulate the entire Tiwantinsuyo, which is the empire of the Inca.
Wow, so the Andes Mountains was the safe place for the Adam and Eve of what were their names again?
Mama Okio and oh my gosh, I can't.
And somebody else, but these were the two.
Two figures, yeah. Two central figures, yeah.
To keep civilization going.
And it's really interesting because
is there any proof of a major flood in those mountains?
I don't think so. I mean, geologically, maybe the Andes kind of was pushed up through tectonic plates upwards. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But what I find interesting is that I find these same exact legends in California from indigenous cultures here locally. So like one of the stories I remember reading, basically, and this is the common theme. When you start seeing animals running a certain way, your first instinct is to pause and try
what's going on?
Yeah, what's going on? But for the few people that follow them instinctively to go uphill or whatever, those are the people that survive, and that's what I came across. Some of the flood legends actually, like in Mount Diablo, right there.
Flood legends in Mount Diablo?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
There's plenty of legends in the Central Valley regarding the flood myth. It's very common legend. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really interesting because they said like, oh, they're there in the community, and they start seeing animals scramble upwards, uphill, and the people that wait around trying to figure out what's going on, they're the ones that get caught up in this wave. And the people that automatically, instinctively follow these animals going uphill, those are the people that survive. And you see this common theme in various legends around California, especially. And even in Latin America, throughout Mexico and South America. It's really interesting. It's really interesting.
So how much do you know about cultures around California? I mean, have you studied that too?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What are some of the cultures, some more interesting things that you've heard? We got a minute left. I mean, maybe we'll talk about that on the other side.
Yeah.
But you do know about California and cultures here?
Yes.
All right, we'll talk about that on the other side, too. KSCO Santa Cruz, you guys should check out our Facebook page. You'll find links to Fernando's blog, that's exploringtraditions.com, and his book, The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. He'll be here for another hour. If you want to join us, 218-572-6479-1080, KSCO Santa Cruz, Flight 1080. We'll be back after this. Keep it tuned in. News is up next.
KSCO, Santa Cruz, Monterey, Salinas.
Or 791-080, you're listening to Flight 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. We are back in the air. Fernando Gallegos is joining us. If you want to get on board, give us a call, send a text, send an email. Just do it, and we'll read it, take your call, or ignore it, one or the other. We'll do something with it. Give us a call, send a text, or email. Fernando has written a book, The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. Also the author of the blog, exploringtraditions.com. Fernando, I got a call during the break letting us know there was something going on 129. That's Highway 129, and that is a major accident. Both lanes are closed. Looks like tow truck is on scene, so hopefully they'll be opening that up soon. That's 129 near Rogie Lane. If you're stuck in traffic in either direction, that's what it is. Tow truck is on scene, though, of that major accident. All right, Fernando is joining us. Fernando, thank you again for joining us.
No problem.
I posted a link to your book and your blog on our Facebook page so people can check it out there. They can check out the book. Again, it's on sale through Amazon, and on your blog you can find a link there as well. And this is The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. I'm sure you heard a lot of weird things, a lot of cool things. You were talking about elongated skulls, right?
Yeah.
Is that something that's... I thought that was kind of limited to the Egyptian scene. Is that something that was out there in the rainforest too?
It's found throughout a lot of South America.
Really?
Yeah. Even in Central America, the Mayans practice it. The Aztecs practice it. It was mainly reserved for the elite class, perhaps as a perhaps as a homage to an early predecessor. I don't know.
Wait, okay, because you know where I'm going to go with this,
yeah,
right?
I know exactly.
You know where I'm going to go with this. Okay, let's start off here. Let's start off rationally, and then we'll get into the stuff that's more up for decision, right? Let's say, okay, so these guys, they actually are elongated skulls, right? These
Correct.
are humans.
Correct. Yes. Humans. I want to emphasize humans, yes.
They are humans. I mean,
yes.
The tests have been done, and these are humans. They're not star childs, they're children. They're not aliens. We know what they are. They're humans.
Exactly.
So they went through some kind of process to elongate their skulls.
Yes.
That's fact.
Yes, that's fact.
And also fact is that it wasn't just specifically, it's interesting, wasn't just specifically Egyptians. You're saying this is kind of common among cultures of that time?
Yes, around the world. You could find it again, even in...
Were they all around the same time? Do you know?
I I don't think so. I think it was at different time periods.
But that's still weird. It would be worldwide.
Exactly. Yeah.
What is that? What's that about? Do you have any ideas? Because
So-
you know what I'm going to say. Well, you know what I'm going to say. But go ahead. Do you have any ideas what that's about?
For me, I want to believe like there was some advanced civilization that existed centuries ago. And these elongated skulls might be a homage to these people who might have looked a little bit different. In the Rosicrucian book regarding Lemuria, the Lemuria was seen as the Garden of Eden, the first civilization that ever existed, and from that sprung all civilizations. And perhaps because in the book it mentions giants and these different type of looking humanoids, human beings. Perhaps with elongated skulls, and perhaps this might be a homage to that advanced civilization. I mean, that's very speculative. I could go into great depth about that, but I think to find this practice around the world, which is it's called artificial cranial deformation. It's
It is the practice of elongating their skull.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So in the Americas, it's done by putting the infant when the infant's skull is still kind of like a leathery soft. Yeah. They would lay them down on a board, on a flat board, and slowly tighten waistbands around the head, and tighten it more and more each day until you get that look. And yeah, you could find it all throughout the Americas, and it's amazing to think that the same practices were just reserved for the elite. It was the ruling class. Same thing as what you find in Egypt. This is the royals.
Right.
So is that a homage to some previous ancestor that we have yet to find? Who knows? I don't think so, but I want to believe that there might be something more to it. It's definitely not no alien type of thing, but
again, what is it though, right? And there has to be some reason for it. Even just leave the aliens out. There has to be some kind of common idol, some kind of common thing that they all looked up to, right?
Yeah.
And you can leave aliens out of it if you want, and that just makes it even more interesting. Then what was it?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that's what you do. You're an explorer, right? That's what an explorer does. Yeah. I love it, dude. I love it, and I think I know a lot of our listeners like that kind of thinking too. I mean, leave aliens out of it. What was it?
Yeah, it was such a widespread cultural thing that, I mean, what could it have been?
I would say, I don't want to say it, dude, but you know,
just say it.
Aliens, right? Aliens.
There you go.
But okay, let's not go there. But if anybody has any better ideas, I would like to hear it. That is definitely weird.
For all you know, they were.
What are some of the other common running themes that you saw through your civilizations? Because you've studied not just one or two. You studied a lot, mostly the Americas, right?
Yes, in the Americas.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the other common running things? You know, like someone says here, can Fernando give us an Esalen lesson? An Esalen lesson, right? The Ohlone Indians. Part of the Esalen. I heard that part of their mythology was there was a great flood, and maybe that's Mount Umunum. Is that what it is?
Mount Umunum.
Maybe that's where it got. Their legend was that a coyote and a hummingbird, I think.
Yes, that's correct.
Right, went to the mountaintop. Do you know if it's that mountaintop they're talking about? Because at the top of Mount Umunum, have you ever been there?
No, not yet.
There is a circle. Circular monument to the Ohlone Indians. I mean, this is some place that they went to pray, or there's something special about that circle.
It was a sacred area.
A sacred place, and I don't know if that ties into the legend of the hummingbird and the coyote.
It does. I think Mount Umunum somehow translates to the hummingbird.
Yeah,
hummingbird resting place or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Right.
But yeah, it's a sacred mountain top. It was definitely sacred to them. It's the same thing with Mount Shasta. You have the indigenous people who did not go above the tree line. For them, that was the resting place of the gods. So you see this common theme throughout California, that the top of the mountain is usually reserved for that higher godlike entity.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, right? I mean, you get closer to God.
Exactly.
Why do you think they all pray to a God that's up there?
So, like, I want to go back to like the mountains.
Okay.
So like in Peru, for a lot of the the indigenous people, they pray to the apus. The apus are the mountain spirits, the godlike spirits that occupy the mountains. So whenever you do a prayer, you have to pray to the apus, the local gods, mountain gods that surround you. So yeah, I mean, there's something to it. I think there's some spiritual essence. I don't know.
You can feel it. All you have to do is walk up there and you can feel it. I mean, whether you're spiritual or not, you can feel there's something really different about being up there by yourself, right? Up high above everything. There's something really, I don't know, spiritual is a word for me. Yes, spiritual, but something really invigorating to the soul, right?
Yeah.
And so I can see why people would have those thoughts. Lost civilizations around here. Do you know any civilizations just kind of disappeared?
Around here, I don't think so. I mean, I've heard different stories about lost civilization type advanced civilizations occupying like desert Death Valley. Several instances of people stumbling into the caves and coming across these advanced technologies and stuff like that.
What do you mean advanced technologies?
So like some of the things
in Death Valley?
Yeah, in Death Valley.
Okay.
So that's like one of the hottest places on Earth.
Right. In Death Valley, was that at one time covered by water too? Do you know?
So one of the stories speculates that it was once. So the guy that stumbled in, he came across this advanced technology, like these automatically opening doors and well-decorated chambers and stuff like that. And he speculated that at one point in time, Death Valley was connected to the ocean, so ships would come in and port into the mountains, and within the mountains themselves, there were these grand, like advanced civilization that existed. I mean, there's no proof of that at all. There's been mention of people trying to go back to try to find these caves, these entrances, and have not found anything. Yeah.
Well, you know, I mentioned to you off the air, I'm pretty sure it was off the air, and if not, then I'm going to repeat myself, and I apologize for anybody listening. What you just said right now about you just mentioned ships going into the Death Valley?
Yes,
that's a very common theme because I was studying. I had read about this before, but I brushed up on it a little bit more because I knew you were coming in, and I wanted to talk about a couple of things that I know about, right? Because I've been studying stuff like this too. I love it, dude. I really, really do like studying this stuff. I'm glad you're here too. Again, I want to thank you for coming in. That's a very common theme. So there is a ship in the Salton Sea, supposedly. Right. Again, this is supposedly mythology, legends we're talking about. A lost ship in the Salton Sea, which historically has had its times when it was dry and barren and also had water. At this point, they think that it's underwater again. But the legend is that it's not. This part's not a legend. That the Colorado River empties or used to empty into the Salton Sea. So the legend is that a ship went up there through the Gulf of Baja, I think, and kind of went up through Baja, California, on the not on the Pacific side though, on the Gulf side, right, on the Mexican side, and followed the Salton Sea up the Colorado River, mistakenly thinking that the Colorado River was going to lead them back to the ocean. So they went up there and they got stuck, right? The Spanish ship got stuck, and the tide went out, never came back in enough for the ship to set sail and get out of there. So there it is in the desert, and every now and then it pops back up, and people see it. They get a party together and try to go back out there, and the sands just cover it back up.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and that's the Salton Sea, and it's a very popular story. I've read about it. I don't know how many times. It's a popular theme.
Yeah, the Spaniards thought California was an island for I don't know how many years.
Okay, then that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they knew on this side was the Pacific, and they probably thought going on this side, the Colorado River would take them around the island.
Exactly. Yeah. When they had reached Baja California, they had heard legends of untold riches of gold, and so when they reached the tip of Baja California, they had heard these legends, and so at the time there was this book being circulated among the early Spanish explorers called The Exploits of Esplandia, which mentions this island of I can't remember exactly, but it was named after the Queen Khalifa.
Mm-hmm.
This queen oversaw with her griffins, or what are they called, the griffins?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this island of gold. And so when they saw that and they heard these stories from the natives, they connected the two, this this fictional story that existed at the time, with the native indigenous legends of this gold that existed in the mountains. And so they connected the two, and that's how we have the name California. It originates from that story, the Queen Khalifa.
Wow. So this is when the Spaniards came here, they expected to find, they had heard about these legends of gold.
Yes.
They get here and they hear legends from the locals about
the gold. Yes. And then so I mean, it almost sounds as if the indigenous in Mexico were trying to kind of fend off the Spaniards. Go over there. It's the gold's over there. The gold's over there.
Right.
So they kept going northward.
Do you know if that's why we're called the Golden State?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it all originates from the legend of the Queen Khalifa, who oversaw the Golden Island.
Yeah, I've never known that. I always thought, the Golden State was called the Golden State because of the gold rush, or maybe because of the golden colored hills.
Well, yeah, I mean,
or whatever. But it makes more sense. Yeah. I mean, Califas. I mean, that is the origin of the name California, right?
Yeah.
And it has to do with the origin of gold, or the legend of gold.
And that's a completely fictional story from Spain. And it's interesting how they would connect the two. This actual mythology that they're hearing about, whether or not they were making it up on the spot. They could have been making it up to try to make the Spaniards go further north and leave them alone.
Sure.
So, I mean, could very well be.
Yeah. 479-1080. The Spaniards came here. That's when everything changed, right?
Yep. Yeah.
What were they looking for? Were they looking for gold? Were they looking for resources, to someplace to hang out?
All they wanted was the gold.
Damn.
Yeah. And they did a lot of horrendous things to the indigenous people just to find the gold.
Wow. Locally here, you were talking about how a lot of these tribes were so. Tribes is that a proper word? Groups.
It depends on who you're talking about. Yeah.
So you have these groups of Native Americans living here and there. Just 20 miles away, they'd speak a different language, right?
Yeah. California had the most diverse population than anywhere else in all of.
How did the Spaniards even get down with communicating with people?
I have no idea.
They must have had some really some good linguists there, right? Guys who really know how to break a language down.
Yep. Like for instance, in Mexico, they had come across a shipwrecked priest. He was captured by the Mayans earlier, and he spoke that language, and they were able to communicate to the priest, who would then translate to somebody else, then translate to somebody else. But then they came, and then eventually met up with La Malinche, who later was the official translator for Cortez, and that's how they entered into the Aztec Empire.
Wow. 479-1080 DM at KSCO.com. We're going to take our final break for traffic and news. Keep it tuned in. KSCO Santa Cruz. Phil Deseth is up next. He's got your headlines. KSCO News Time, 6:32. Headlines are up next. Phil, you ready? Take it away.
Thanks, Dave, and good evening, everyone. A jury has convicted 46-year-old James Henderson of 2 counts of first-degree murder. The same jury now just needs to decide if he was sane when he ran over his adopted father, then beat his adopted mother to death in their Aptos home. Their decision will determine if Henderson faces life in prison or if he is committed to the California Department of State Hospitals. Amazon is paying $1.5 million in civil penalties and settlement fees after the Monterey County District Attorney's Office and 22 other district attorneys took legal action. The action stems from allegations that Amazon advertised and sold plastic products that were misleadingly labeled as biodegradable. And several streets will be closed while the Strawberry Festival is held this weekend in Watsonville. 9 pallets of local strawberries have been delivered, which is about 10,000 boxes of the berries. The event celebrates not just the local crop, but the city's 150th anniversary. Money raised by the event goes to help support 13 local charities. It's 6:33, time to get back to Flight 1080. I'm Phil Deeseth for KSCO Radio.
If someone should ask, tell them you heard it on AM 1080 KSCO.
You're listening to AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. 6:34 is the time. If you're stuck in there in traffic near Rogie Lane, this is Highway 129. The roadway is now open, so just give us some time. You should get moving rather quickly. Other than that, though, if you are stuck in traffic, it's just your garden variety rush hour traffic. Things are starting to pick up. But again, if you're stuck in traffic out there on 129, speeds will pick up pretty soon. The roadway has just been cleared. All right, Fernando Gallegos is joining us. Again, exploringtraditions.com is your blog. Your book is called The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. We talked about some of the stuff in the book today, but there's a whole lot more in this book, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So this is, how long did it take you to write this book?
Period of 3 months.
3 months. So there's 3 months worth of, or how many adventures are in here? How long did it take you to get the material to write this?
The material I collected over the span of 4 years while I was an undergraduate at San Jose State.
So this is about your 4 years as an undergraduate going and exploring.
I spent all my every free time that I had in the basement of basically the library, just digging up all this research.
So that's great, dude. I mean, that's maybe it hasn't paid financially for you, but you know, in terms of writing a book, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all well-researched stuff, right? And it says right here, let me see. Many previous published works on individual subjects covered in this book are outdated and lack current academic and scientific findings. So you bring a fresher, more technologically advanced look into what we're talking about.
Yep. Everything is academically cited. That every source that I pull up is cited.
So, and
it's not like I'm pulling it up out of like Wikipedia or some online blog or something.
Right. There's all legitimate research stuff that's in this book.
Yep. All peer, I compare a lot of the different mythologies and stuff like that, and a lot of the peer-reviewed journals, so the scientific journals.
I'm looking right here on the cover. It says The Ancients, Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. And the cover is the picture of some of these structures. Like you said, now these are not the best example, but there are structures out there that are built with seemingly out-of-place technology.
Yes, that's
right?
correct. That's correct.
Some of these blocks are built so precise it's just not possible with the stuff they had at that time.
Yep. Yeah, there's massive boulders perfectly fitting into like this jigsaw type of structure, and it's how they did it. We still can't fully grasp it, grasp the understanding of how they did it. But in some of the early writings, they do mention that this was sheer human strength.
Do you know if they had metal tools at the time? Did they have anything that was harder than stone?
I think they had bronze. They had bronze axes. I know that for a fact.
Okay.
But how they chiseled it so perfectly fitting, like these massive boulders, it still boggles the mind. And it's definitely a technology that we have since lost and forgotten. But again, some of the early chronicles do mention that this was all done with sheer human strength.
Some people say aliens. Again, I hate to go back to that, but it is such a big part. It has become such a big part since Eric von Däniken released Chariots of the Gods, right?
Exactly.
It just opened a can of worms that we can't put these worms back in.
Yeah.
There's too many worms. Some people say that technology couldn't exist without aliens.
So to completely dismiss like a cultural achievement such as that is completely dismissing like how long it took for them to advance as a civilization.
That's a diss. That's a slap in the face to those guys.
These people spent thousands of years trying to master this type of architecture and technology, and to completely dismiss it by saying aliens and what have you, it's a slap in the face to their ingenious capabilities.
Mm-hmm. You know, people say this today. Today's example would be I hear this about fiber optic technology and fiber optics and the circuit board being a result of the crashed, spaceship in Roswell, and people, real scientists get upset at the guys who say that, and they say, no, listen, jerk, we made the fiber optics. We paid the price for that stuff. And somebody spent countless nights up awake at night, pulling his hair out, drinking coffee, trying to get this stuff nailed down. That is our technology. Let's give ourselves some credit, right? Yep. So let's go ahead and call these guys the geniuses that they were, because that's what they were.
Exactly. And that seems to be a common thing to undermine a lot of this indigenous advancements.
Mm-hmm.
That stems back to like European times when the Europeans were coming here. They wanted to undermine these cultural achievements that these people took centuries to master. Like the Aztec Empire was one of the cleanest, and one of the most sophisticated than anything that existed in Europe at the time. And to completely dismiss them, I think that stems back to that colonial mentality.
What do you think that is? Do you think that was them trying to be superior to them? Because,
Well, how else are you going to enslave these people? How are you going to conquer these people if you don't undermine their...
If you have too much respect for them, you're not going to go and enslave them, right? So
Exactly,
you say they didn't do this. This is I don't know.
What do they do? They
natural rock formations.
Yeah, they destroyed their temples. They completely took away everything they've achieved culturally, and it's just a form of colonial mentality, that enslavement.
Have you ever heard of the Coral Castle in Florida?
Yeah.
Okay, now talking about technologies that have been forgotten, right? Because the stone cutting technologies, like you said, was really, really remarkable. The Coral Castle, for people who don't know, is this, I don't know what you would call this kind of structure, or this kind of building with stones, right? So this guy placed all these stones. Some of them are so big that it would take equipment to move these things, major equipment, if you could.
Yep.
And the guy moved it himself, right? And he placed these things and balanced them so delicately that you can push a stone door with your hand, just push it right open. Because it's so balanced. Some people say that he used levitation, right?
Yeah,
he manipulated Earth's, or used Earth's gravitational field or magnetic field to his advantage. It's just bizarre stuff, right? But how else did he do it? I don't know. It wasn't aliens, I'll tell you that. So give the guy some credit, right? Genius, absolute genius.
Exactly.
The pyramids, absolute freaking genius. I mean, they still has us stumped, right? 2,000 years later or whatever it is. We still can't figure it out. I think it's older than 2,000 years. Isn't it older? Doesn't it predate Jesus? I mean, it's old, right? Predates the Bible. Just fantastic stuff.
Give credit where credit's due, I guess.
Give credit where credit is due. Just because they were, didn't have... I've often wondered, who were the geniuses back then, right? Because the geniuses back then didn't have computers, so you wouldn't catch them making any kind of technological leaps there. But there had to be geniuses there, just like there are now, right? There's certainly people who are smarter than everybody else. So there had to be them back then. Those are probably the guys who were doing the stone cutting and building. Just absolute geniuses.
Yeah, even, let's say, for instance, like the Mayan culture, how accurately they mapped out the stars. And how, that's...
Dude, I can't imagine. I think after I'm 46 years old now, and I think now that I would be able to come up with the idea that the sun doesn't stay in one place. Right? It does, but we don't stay. I think that I would be able to figure out the seasons and how we work. But that'd take me 40 years, right? And for these guys to come up with the knowledge and the accuracy.
Oh yeah,
which is amazing. Do these guys have writing? Do you know, or is it all passed along?
So the Mayans actually did have like the writings, but most of it was burned by the priests. They saw it as contrary to the Christian ideas at the time and things of the devil, so they burned them all. And only, I think, 3 or 4 codices actually still exist to this day, which is a shame because they had massive libraries. And imagine what those teachings actually would consist of. As for South America, they did not have any writing. They didn't have any form of writing. And for them to achieve what they did is remarkable. They had what were called quipus, which are these strings with little knots in them, and that was their writing system. And even then, we can't really. There's not many left, and we can't really decipher really what they say. So it's incredible, with or without writing, how much they could actually achieve.
Yeah, I think writing is is one of the biggest advancements. We owe a lot to the invention of the written language, which I think a lot of us say, oh, we take it for granted. Paper, writing, what's that about? But, the ability to pass knowledge on to the next generation is amazing. And once that was discovered, boy, I bet things just started happening. Like the mapping of the stars, right? Yep. That had to be passed on. The information had to be passed on. That's just too much for one person to learn in one lifetime.
Exactly.
And write down. That is generation after generation of astronomers.
Exactly.
With written knowledge and studying. Yeah, it's science. Yep. It was science. Cutting edge science for what they had at that time.
Extremely tedious.
Extremely tedious. Yeah. Holy moly. 479-1080. Bill is calling from Boulder Creek. You're in the air.
Yeah, I think one of the proofs that there was ancient civilizations that were more advanced we were is the pyramid over back east in Egypt. People thought it was a burial tomb, but just one of the things it did, it had a roughly 10-inch or so square channel going roughly on the side, I guess, facing the north, and it had a Z-turn of polished granite such that it would reflect light, and it went down into a basement, and apparently they had a grid on the wall, and they put an f-stop over this 10-inch square, and so what happened is, on the longest day of the year, the sun would go over this, the edge would go past this square, and the light would shoot down this channel and hit the f-stop and put a dot on the wall. And with that, they put a grid on it, and they could figure, and of course, something like a sand clock, they could figure out how fast the Earth was turning. And the question is, why did they do it in the basement? Because, well, one of the things this pyramid was it was a observation, astronomical observation station.
Right. Well, what you just described to me, it sounds like a telescope, a primitive telescope.
No. The light went. See, on the longest day of the year, the light went. She would shoot down the shaft straight down, hit this Z turn, so they didn't have to make the pyramid even higher, and it would. They polished the granite such that it would reflect light, and then it would shoot into the basement, and they put a dot on the wall. They could figure out how far with trigonometry, of course, which apparently that was something from the ancients that has been passed on to our generations.
Huh. Interesting. Well, Bill, I thank you for your phone call, 479-1080. Fernando, that to me sounds like a camera or a telescope, right? Because a telescope works the same way. It gathers light, it brings it down the tunnel, it refracts it, it uses a mirror, and reflects the image to your eyeball, as well as a camera does the same thing. It'll take the light through something like that, and if you were to do it properly and you had things polished to bounce that light onto a wall, you would have a picture on that wall.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Again, ancient technology. To me, what it sounds like is either a very primitive camera or a telescope. And remember, we're not talking when they had glass or plastics. This is you made do with what you had, and that to me sounds brilliant. I mean, that's genius. Yeah.
That really reminded me of the temple at Chichen Itza, the Kukulkan. I can't pronounce the name off the top of my head, but it's the equivalent of Quetzalcoatl. So alongside of the pyramid, during the equinox, you see the serpent, right? And then, as the equinox is happening, you see it going into the ground. So for them, that was like the rebirth of the god entity going into the earth and rejuvenating the earth. So it's really awesome to see like the snake and the casting of the shadows from the pyramid onto the serpent, and it looks like as if the serpent is going into the ground and rejuvenating.
So what is the thing with the serpent? That's their god?
Yeah. Can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was the equivalent of the Mayan equivalent of Quetzalcoatl.
479-1080, DM at KSCO.com. Our next caller is from Felton. What do you got?
I would like to ask your guest if he is aware that Bigfoot, Sasquatch is an interdimensional being, and also as CERN, Switzerland, that it is Stargate that they're opening, and that Bigfoot may have come through along with some aliens. And I'll take my answer out there. Thank you.
Ignore that guy, Fernando. He's probably drunk. 479-1080. So you're talking about this temple where it appears that the shadows are cast on this, so it looks like the snake is going back into the
plumed serpent. Yep. Back into the ground.
Amazing. You know, another thing I heard about the pyramids, I don't know if you've heard this, is that they were actually big generators or big batteries.
Oh, I've heard that.
And that, you know, the down in the basement, or the basement, I say in quotes because I don't know what's in there, they would have some sort of chemical or some kind of powder, right? Some sort of reactant. And then in the top, they would pour the other reactant, right? And so these things getting together would create energy. You know, the Iraq battery you're familiar with.
Did you not hear about the recent discovery of the pyramid? There's a recent publication saying that they actually were able to prove that it actually harnessed energy, the actual pyramid. And this is fairly recent. I think it was this week.
Mm-hmm. No, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because a lot of other mystical people actually make claims as to how advanced the Egyptians were, and a lot of continuations of different secret societies of that sort all mentioned that the pyramids were a source of energy. It was like a source of energy for them to go in and basically rejuvenate. A lot of the Greek philosophers would travel to become initiated within the temple of the pyramids, I mean. And
wow.
It's interesting to see that continuation of these stories. I mean, they were stories in a sense that they were esoteric traditions, but now they're slowly trying to prove that perhaps there was something more to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was all word of mouth. These were secret teachings, right? And for them to be discovering that there's actual validity behind these teachings is quite amazing.
Do you have you ever heard of civilizations destroyed by God for their technological advances, or they're wanting to bite off more than they could chew? Kind of approaching God's territory, and God saying, "No, that's not happening."
So, and I mean that was the point of that's like the final chapter of my book.
Really?
Yeah. So, I talk about the advancements of Lemuria and Atlantis. So, if we were to take it as a metaphor, we could understand that they were achieving so much so rapidly that they hadn't addressed everything, which is in the current state that we're in right now. We're advancing so much technologically, but yet we haven't addressed the simplest of issues, the simplest of moral issues, ethical issues.
Right. It's like Jeff Bloom said in the Jurassic Park. We're so busy wondering whether or not we can do it, we don't ask ourselves if we should do it.
Exactly. And then these stories actually, even if you don't believe any of it, they offer that moral story that when you achieve too much too quickly, the earth will somehow revert itself back into a former state. You have these legends of, like, in South America again, in the Incas, the legend that the God created these people and they were misguided. They were going against God, and that's why God created this great flood. I mean, this is a common story. Common story.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you've heard the Indian tale, and by Indian I mean from India, that there was this kind of war going on where one person went up and destroyed another. Two I guess I'm going to call them aliens, come down, they land, and they get into this kind of war. Nuclear weapons are used, or some kind of devastating weapons are used, and just screws everything up. And I think that tale is the kind of going back to what we're talking about, is when you achieve that technology so fast, dangerous things can happen. Some people, I hear this mentioned with aliens and God. They say, hey, why don't they just give us this technology? Or why doesn't God just, say, here you go, here's a cancer-solving, ray gun or whatever. No, you have to earn it. Because if you don't earn it, then you don't learn the responsibility and the consequences of that technology, and there you go. You blow yourself up.
Exactly.
Are there any legends of civilizations that, again, were maybe blown up, destroyed by God, by earthquakes and floods? It seems to be most likely. But anything technologically, fire from the sky even?
Not that I've come across. I mean, you have like things like Pompeii with volcano and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's gnarly.
But that's the extent of it. I mean, you have like the Tamil culture in southern India, which mentions another civilization, which they associate with Lemuria, actually, which is quite interesting. That the Tamil culture was at one point so advanced that they were like they were reigning over all of the people in India, and somehow they were wiped out, clean off the map. So they still maintain this mentality, this homage to this ancient civilization that they're descendant of. So they still maintain a lot of those ideas.
Wow.
It seems to be a very common theme. You have even in Irish culture, you have like the land of Tirnanog and things of that sort. Like they all mention like this advanced place, this beautiful enchanted place, and just becomes destroyed or exists now under the ocean. And it seems to be a really common theme.
Under the ocean, we all know about one place very famous for being under the ocean now. Is that too a common theme among different continents? I mean, does Brazil or South America have their own Atlantis? Does North America have their own version of a city that was sunk by water, by floods?
No, not that I could think of off the top of my head. I know early Spanish explorers do mention coming across landmass that they recorded in their writings, but later tried to go back and were unable to find any of it. There was a really famous incident where...
But these guys, too, they know the difference between high tide and low tide, right? Well, the land was there. Well, they know low tide.
There was a really famous incident where this ship was coming from Europe down into the port of New Orleans. And according to them, they came across miles and miles of dead fish. And they saw smoke in the distance, and they kept going in that direction. They came across a large landmass that looked as if it just had arisen from the ocean. They went around to explore, and then they found like these weapons and like this sarcophagus, and they put it on the ship, and then they docked in New Orleans, and then it all went missing. And what I find interesting is that they weren't the only ones that mentioned coming across this large amounts of dead fish and stuff like that. So there's been actually recorded sightings of land masses coming up and them claiming it for Britain or whoever, and then it just disappearing into the ocean. So whether or not it's like a fluctuation of whether or not it's a fluctuation of
plates or whatever.
Plates, yeah. So it could very well be that civilizations come and go, and perhaps we built it on top of.
We got 4 minutes left, so let me. We're talking about building techniques, right, and how well built these things are. Again, this book is called "The Ancients: Investigations into the Lost Civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis." Fernando S. Gallegos. I posted a link on our Facebook page. The name of your blog is exploringtraditions.com. They can find a link to your book there as well. Okay, so back to how well built these things are. Have you seen the footage of the underwater, quote-unquote, cities that are built the same way? I mean, the stone blocks are so precisely placed, but these are underwater, like miles of quote-unquote, roadways and walls.
Yeah, I think a lot of them were dismissed as geological, but...
if you look at them, I mean, you can decide yourself, right? You can go online and find them out, but you have seen these things.
Yeah.
And where are they located?
So the most popular ones are the ones in Bermuda. So off in the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
Those are the ones I've
not too far from Florida, right?
No, yeah. Wow. It's interesting.
Very interesting. Awesome. What do you think about that?
I want to see it to actually believe it.
You're not going to go exploring there?
No, definitely not. I'm not going to go underwater.
All right. So where's your next trip? Where are you going next?
I'm still up in the air about it, but I really want to continue.
What's on your list? What's on your bucket list? Where are some places on your bucket list? I
need to continue that exploration in the Amazon. I need to find that city. We're going to be working carefully with a team.
That's something that you really want to do?
Yeah. It's extremely dangerous, but I want to go back and actually find... Because if you're able to find some evidence of...
are you in it for the fame? Are you in it for a fortune?
No.
Just to explore?
For the sake of history. I mean, if we're able to rewrite history that the Incas actually did venture that far deep into the Amazon, that could rewrite history. That the Amazon was extremely populated at one point in time, that will completely change history. And I think that's the most important thing.
How big is the Amazon? I mean, because, I think, going out there looking for lost cities, I mean, we live in Santa Cruz, and it's hard to imagine that you can walk for more than 2 days without, you're going to find there's stuff everywhere here, but in the Amazon, it's not like that.
Yeah, it's incredibly massive, and
That's awesome.
And it's crazy, like to machete your way.
You do that?
Yeah, inch by inch through the brush. It takes days just to go a few kilometers.
That is awesome, man. That is awesome. Why do you do it? I mean, why? Why? Do you ever wonder that? Do you ever ask yourself that while you're sitting there sweating with the pit viper crawling across your boot and you're chopping down bushes? You ever say, what am I doing? Why don't I just stay home and watch YouTube?
I don't know. It's all about the adventure, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
That's great, dude. That is fantastic, man. Well, I wish you the best, Fernando. And I want our audience to go and check out your book. They can check it out on our Facebook page. I posted a link there to your to buy your book and exploringtraditions.com. Order the book. Order the book now. And while you're waiting for the book, go to exploringtraditions.com because you got a lot of stuff up there as well. Really, really cool stuff. And again, I'm telling you, it just takes 10 minutes. I'm a slow reader, maybe 15, 20 minutes to read these things. But the ideas that come out of them, dude, are just fantastic, man. Great job, dude. Great job. Fernando, thank you for joining us. We want to thank everybody who called.